Yo, what is going on, Papa Fam? Welcome to episode 13. Had a bit of a technical glitch, but we are good. We are back and strong. And today we're changing up the format just a little bit. So we're going to be diving into the actual nitty-gritty AI stuff that you guys have been asking for, how to actually go really in depth and add value to an app with things like AI agents. So if you're excited for that, I've gone ahead and done it a little bit different today. So go ahead and shout out where you're watching from right now. We're going to dive into a demo in just a second. I'm shouting out where everyone's watching from right now. What's up, guys? We got India in the house, UK. What's up? I see everyone. Vibe Sama, Haresh, Athava, Tatiana. And let's go ahead and, okay, now we're good. I just had to double check we're actually live. Okay, guys, go ahead and get excited. We've got Career Connect today. So again, we're not going to be diving through the app as such, like every other build. I'll show you an example of it. Oh, look at that. Now the chat's popping off. There you go, guys. So 3, 2, 1, get excited. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Boom. So we're all used to seeing beautiful apps now, right? Everyone's got more access to them. You guys have seen it before. Like you've probably vibe coded a ton yourself. But I want to dive into things that separate you from an average, every other vibe coder out there. What actually makes you have value to an application? So we're going to do that by using two really cool things today. I'm going to introduce you to obviously something we've used before on the channel, Clerk, to implement authentication, billing, all of that stuff. But something which I thought was absolutely incredibly powerful, Vercel Eve, okay? So, and no, we're not sponsored by Vercel Eve. This is just something which I find really, really cool. And we're gonna go ahead and dive into it. So again, you're gonna get access to all of this code. First off, I'm giving you everything. The link is in the description to go check it out. And of course, here we have a full demo. I built this entire app. You guys get this for free. We have a full profile access. You guys can see I'm a new member. We can go ahead and edit our profile. I can go ahead and give myself a name. So in this case, I've gone ahead and signed up. So imagine this is similar to a LinkedIn profile. Go ahead and we've got image support, everything that you can expect, right? This whole thing has been built out, spec'd out. But what makes an app like this more useful is the AI features that are now becoming more mainstream and kind of, more useful when we go into using these apps. So first example, vector embeddings. So when you're searching for a job, how can we do, for example, percentage matches? So does this job apply to me or not? Am I closely related to this match or am I not? Right? That's actually something more useful, right, than just having a chatbot by itself. So in this case, these jobs down here, I can save myself the time. Whereas these jobs over here, okay, I'm a better match for those, right? We have a full application flow, so I can review all of my submissions. If I am a company, I can go ahead and sign up. So in this case, I'm a B2B. I have built the entire B2B element. We can go to the dashboard over here. You can see I'm on a pro subscription here. So we're on a company pro subscription. We've got access to all the AI features. We have job postings. We can see who's applied and what stage of an interview they're at. We can click into that. We can see the entire application flow. And then of course, as we go ahead and give them an offer and such, we can go ahead and basically we've got a full audit trail. So all of this is basically given to you out of the gate. Now, where it gets really cool is this next part, okay? So AI agent. Now, you've seen AI agents before, but bear with me. This is not a normal AI agent. This is an entirely new way, which I guarantee 99.9% of you have not done yet because it just came out. So if you're first and you're watching this now, I promise you, you're in the right place because you're about to learn something which is pretty much hot out of the oven, okay? So in this case, we've got a few suggestions here, okay? So let's say I want to improve my profile for my Next.js engineering roles, okay? Firstly, tool calls. We understand how these work, okay? The chat is popping. I appreciate you guys so much, right? So that couple of tool calls is reading my profile, but this is awesome, okay? So if you've ever used something like Codex, GPT, Claude, or any of that stuff, hey, thanks, Tatiana, thank you very much. There you go, it's pretty much Santa Claus in the house. In this case, we can go ahead and see it can actually ask questions. Okay, so these questions were all generated from AI. And you see how we can go ahead and answer them? So in this case, I'll rewrite your profile for Next.js AI engineer roles. What should it emphasize most? In this case, let's go ahead and say I'm trying to go towards AI engineering, but not necessarily specifically the first one that I mentioned, okay? So in this case, it can go ahead and think, and behind the scenes is where it gets really cool, okay? But you see here, bringing in profile writer to reposition your profile for a general AI engineering pivot. So now it's calling a sub-agent inside of this agent flow. And again, this is entirely custom, okay? And the way that this has all been built will blow your mind, I swear to God. That's why I'm excited for everyone that is tuning in right now, because you guys are gonna see something which I guarantee you've not seen before on streams, okay? So while this is open on the side, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you some of the code, and I wanna really get into this early on. So Vercel Eve is an absolute game changer for how you can build agents. So again, I'm not sponsored by Vercel Eve. I want to stress that right now. We do have an ongoing conversation where we might be able to work with them, but in this video, we're not sponsored. I just thought it was damn cool and I want to bring it to your attention, okay? So just like we have Next.js for the web, we have Vercel Eve now for how to build agents in a nice scalable way for the web, okay? And what it is basically we break it down into this, this file-based folder approach, similar to how we do routing in Next.js, okay? So if we take a look at the agents folder over here, we can see a bunch of things. We can see an instructions MD. So let's take a little deep dive, right? While this agent's doing a bit of rewriting over here, we can see we've got instructions MD, right? So in this case, this is what the agent does, okay? This is the agent, basically all of its instructions. Then we have agent.ts. And tell me anywhere where you have seen simpler code to set up, right? This is so damn easy to set up. Like, look at that. It literally is using a brand new Claude Sonnet 5 through the Vercel AI Gateway. Boom. That's all you need, right? There's no crazy code. There's no Vercel AI SDK that I have to wire up separately. All through Vercel Eve, I just put that. Define agent. Done, okay? Now, when I want to specify tools, all I do is I create a tools folder and I just add in functions. For example, I want to get a user profile. This is the entire tool call, guys. Look at this. That is it. That's the entire tool call. I use the define tool function. We have a description. We have input schema, which is Zod validation to make sure that obviously we can basically type safe check ourselves. Then we have the execution function. This is basically where whatever you want to happen inside that tool happens. Okay. So in this case, we go ahead and we're going and getting the user's profile. Okay, in this case, but we've got a couple of other things. We've got like analyze the skill gap, a bunch of other things, whatever you want to do. But each one of these guys is just a function. So simple. Like, this is crazy, right? Before you'd have to have nested things and it gets really messy really quickly. Okay, but Sonny, what about skills, right? Let's dive into the skills in this case. Look at this, career planning MD, right? So now I want to give it a couple of skills. You guys know what skills are. Effectively, they're just basically consider a skill like you have a bunch of pieces of paper on the desk, right? When the agent needs that piece of paper, which makes them an expert in that specific skill, they pick up the paper, they read it, and now they bring it into the conversation. Now they're an expert in that, okay? In this case, we have 5 pieces of paper. We have 5 skills, right? Career planning, interview prep, profile optimization, and so forth, right? All we do is we just write what we want inside of these skills, right? So this is basically what we expect it to do. And these are basically making it more skilled in these areas, okay? So we just put these in, and we don't have to worry about registering them. By using Vercel Eve, by having this folder structure, they automatically get registered to the agent, okay? Then we've got lib. Lib1 is basically just for us to connect things, for example, Convex and so forth. Channels as well. So channels is where we can connect things like, for example, in this case, Clerk. Right, so I'll dive into that a bit later, but then it gets really cool. We've got sub-agents, and in each individual sub-agent follows the exact same folder structure beneath it. So in this case, if I've got a profile writer, that profile writer has an instructions MD, it has an agent.ts file where we can change the model, it has tools of its own, and it has skills. You see how easy this gets, okay? So it gets really simple to go ahead and do this. So we're going to dive into this, how you can build your own custom agent. Let's go ahead and see a little checkup on this one right here. So I'm going to actually do another demo here. So for example, which job should I apply for first? And then we can actually see a couple of the tool calls kick off in action. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this over here. And now this one would go ahead and kick off a few things. It would go ahead and you see, got your profile, target role is Next.js AI engineer. What should I optimize the job ranking for? Let's go ahead and look for Next.js AI engineering roles. Okay, because that's what a lot of you are going to start pivoting towards if you're in Next.js previously. It says bringing in the job scout to rank Next.js AI engineer roles for you. And word of truth, I merged one change in previously before I did this, and I'm concerned it broke one thing. So we're going to see if that is the case here, but I'm going to show you how we can fix it if it is happening like that. But what this is effectively doing is bringing the job scout. And if we open up my terminal here, you can actually see, you see how it's running down here? So you can see, look, it's actually running individual agents in the background. So sub-agents profile writer was called previously and so forth, okay? So this is pretty damn cool. And I believe we can actually go ahead and interrupt it, or I've not actually enabled that, okay? But we're gonna dive into how you can do all of this in a sec. But basically I should, maybe next time I don't merge something in right before we go live, because I think that's broken one thing. So I'm gonna say, show me jobs I'm well suited for, okay? Because I basically forced it to use the sub-agents, which I don't know if it was the best idea. in this case. But quick question scoping before I bring in the job scout. Let's do this one, Next.js AI Engineero. And let's just leave this in the background. But basically, this will go ahead and use a bunch of beautiful cards to go ahead and get it working. So we're going to dive into this, and I'll show you how you can get this entire thing nicely done. We also have a nice outreach section, so where we can draft outreach with AI. So again, building it in different ways. And all of this is basically feeding our AI agent, and then it's using the tools that I mentioned earlier. Okay. Hey, we've got Passion Brains in the house as well. What's up, guys? If you guys find it useful, any of this stuff, just smash that like button. That's all I ask for you guys to do. Okay. So in this case, it's going to confirm the tone, select warm and personable tone for an outreach. This is really handy, for example, if I've saved a job. So in this case, I saved the job previously, Vercel, and now it's going to go ahead and create a outreach letter for me. But I think I've broken the sub-agent part. But anyway, we're going to jump into this, and it's going to be pretty damn big. Okay. There are lots of humans here. These are all humans, dude. Okay, in this case, you can see like initialize 5 sandbox templates. Sandbox template is ready. Okay, so it was actually the sandboxes that were kind of screwing up before. All right, but I'll explain how this entire thing works. Now, you're probably wondering, but Sonny, where is the agents actually running? Well, I promise you it gets easier, guys. If we go to our next config, guys, look at this. One line of code. All you need to do is add the with Eve command next to your next config, so it effectively wraps it. And now anywhere where you go ahead and basically deploy your next app is going to be where Vercel Eve lives. And you're probably wondering, but how is he running it local then? Well, in this case, you can see the entire Eve pipeline when I'm running it local is running in these subfolders here. So look at this. We've got workflow data. We've got runs that are happening separately. And this is effectively how it's saving everything. Okay. And it gets even better. So there's so much that I want to talk about today and stack into this. We're going to break it all down. But if we go over to the actual Eve framework, I want to show you. So look, again, we start with the instructions MD. This is mandatory. We need that one, okay? Then we choose the model in the agent.ts file. If you don't choose it, it's going to default to a basic model, okay? Then we've got reusable skills. No, you can actually go ahead and deploy Vercel Eve on different platforms, I believe, as well, right? Add reusable skills. And then you can see that it gets even better. Define tools. We can customize a sandbox. So in this case, you can choose the runtime environment. And all of these sandboxes are isolated per agent, right? Per run. So it's crazy. It handles everything for you. Then you can connect channels. So let's say, for example, you want to have it ping to Slack. Imagine, like, you might be well suited and be like, well, Sonny, I can do this from Claude Code. But I'm talking about building your own custom agent that can literally interact with the outside world, not a pre-built tool. Okay, so you can connect with things like Slack. All of the things that the Vercel Connect SDK allow you to do, you can do that with the channels. You can also connect your stack. So this is basically your connection. So let's say, for example, we have MCP connections. Even LinkedIn. So say we want to pull from LinkedIn. They have an MCP. Say we want to pull from Linear. Let's say we want to pull from anywhere. We can simply add these connections like so, right? So we simply have one file. You see how small this is getting? Right, all you need to do is go ahead and pop this in. And this is a huge benefit if you're trying to build it. And this will set you apart from every other AI engineer right now, because every AI engineer out there is building in the old school way and it's taking them time. I promise you this is a hack, okay? So you want to do it this way now. It's going to save you a ton of time. And by the way, this connect block over here even manages the OAuth flow. So when they come to use that tool, it will literally pop up with the Google sign-in, for example, or whatever sign-in method. Let's say I'm trying to authenticate Linear. It will pop in with that authentication method, handle everything for me, okay? Sub-agents that we spoke about before, and also schedules. So this is crons, making your agent run on a set schedule and so forth, right? Every single thing is basically built out, and they're all basically utilizing like the Vercel SDK agent stack, okay? So in my opinion, this is insane. You've got everything in one place to go, okay? So we're going to be diving into exactly that today. And remember, if you want to dive into all the code base, you have access to everything inside the GitHub description. If you go to the link in the description, you get pretty much go ahead and see this. All you need to do is copy this, or clone this, sorry. Pull this into your own repo, and basically go ahead and set up your environment variables. I've included a ton of instructions. Like, this goes on for ages. You can pop this into your AI agent, it'll set it up, okay? So let's go ahead and show you how you can build all of this, and then how you can gate it behind an actual platform. So for example, you can have billing behind it. So let's say we wanna go ahead and log in as a new account. So prime example, if I log in as a fresh account here, okay? So let's go ahead and sign in. And I'm gonna sign in as one of my team accounts here. So I'm gonna sign in as my team at Papa React account. Let's go ahead and pop into that one. Give that a sec, and then let's do continue. And now, once we log in, we'll see the following. So I have a brand new account. Okay, so I can go ahead and set up my account, my profile. I can follow people. I can do a bunch of stuff. I can go ahead and comment, post, whatever the normal stuff allows for. But then what I want you to do is, if you want to go ahead and use AI agents, for example, it's a pro feature. So this is typically something you're going to need in apps if you're going to add AI, features. You want to gate them behind things. Otherwise, people are going to effectively burn through your tokens and pay nothing, which is a no-win, right? So you're going to obviously pay for that. So if we want to handle this and basically allow people to upgrade, this is where we need payment flows like this. Complete checkout flows that allow us to basically have the full upgrade functionality. So in this case, if I want to upgrade to Pro, I click Pay with Test Card, and now this authorized the entire bill for me, and I'm now on Pro, and you can see I now have access to the agent features, right? I'm going to show you how you can manage the entire thing. So in this case, you see how I can manage all of my billing, my statements, payments, everything. All of this is super easy. And then for B2B, so for example, let's say I'm a company and I want to basically put job listings out for people. I'm going to show you how we can create organizations. Organizations are a game changer. If you've never done them before, it's another league of development. This is where literally it will separate you from the kids who are vibe coding versus the actual devs who know what they're doing, right? So literally, in this case, organizations are huge. So over here, if we type in, for example, Papa Fam, let's say I'm a company called Papa Fam. I can go ahead and give it a logo here. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly give this a logo. So let's give this the company Papa Fam logo. And then let's go ahead and click on create organization. And now what will happen is, you see Papa Fam, we can say AI, company size 1 to 10, we're in Dubai. Give it a website if you want me to say, we the best AI company in the world, okay? Whatever you want to do. Then you go ahead and create the company. And now you can see, boom, we have a full company. We can start posting job applications. We can have application tracking, everything in the mix. We can add our logo here as well, cover image, all that stuff. And then of course, we've limited them to a certain amount of job slots that they can do. And if we want to upgrade, we can go ahead and do the upgrade flow here for the company. And what's really different about this, you're probably wondering, well, Sonny, how does this work? Well, in this case, if you go to the manager over here, companies are different, guys. We can invite people to our organization. So in this case, this is when you want to have, for example, 5 to 10 people in a company. You want a bill per seat, for example. Clerk allow you to do that. And then when you have one billing membership that basically is applicable to all of your all of the people in your company. So in this case, remember, this is separate to my personal subscription on the platform. So that's exactly what I really want to emphasize here. The difference between B2B, which is basically company to company, or B2C, whereas I as a user have pro privileges on an app, for example, like LinkedIn or Career Connect. Okay. So in this case, if we were to upgrade to company pro, pay with test card, now you'll see I go from company free to, in this case, it'll be company pro. So now, boom, we now have company pro. I can manage my subscription. And as you can see, there we have it, right? There's also role-based access control. Everything is handled for you out the box. So if I was to invite a new member now, I can invite them as a member instead of an admin, and they won't see things like billing, okay? So we're going to show you how to do all of this, okay? Somebody says, Amir says, quick question. At the bottom of the video, it's written, join 0 to Full Stack Hero. Is that some sort of video tutorial series from you? If yes, where can I find it? All right, so firstly, 0 to Full Stack Hero is our flagship course. So this is where we are teaching everyone how to code. That course is completely available at papareact.com/course. We have a new community coming, however, which I really recommend you be a part of. And being a part of that early on, I'm even considering giving everyone access to 0 to Full Stack Hero as well, okay? So by joining that community, if you're one of the first, you'll get full access to 0 to Full Stack Hero, okay? So go ahead and pop in your name and email. The link is in the description to our waiting list. We're releasing this ideally this month, where I'm going to be teaching everything about this stuff that we do, how to become an effective AI engineer, okay? And again, how to bring actual value. This is why I want to do these live streams, how you can actually build value into an app as opposed to just building AI for the sake of using AI, okay? So I love the comments flying in. I'm going to answer you guys in a moment, okay? So just to quickly give a summary of what we're going to be doing today. You get all of this code yourself, but I'm going to be diving into the AI agent aspect of it mostly, and also the billing side so that we can teach you how to gate it, okay? And the really cool part, we're going to be letting our agent set up most of it, okay? So we're going to let our agent set up everything on the Clerk side with the Clerk CLI. So I'm going to show you how you can do all of that. And then we're also going to be showing you how to enable your billing, everything in the mix. So all of your authentication methods, all of your multi-tenancy, which means how you can have separate organizations be inside of the platform as well as all the subscription and everything in between is going to be done from our agent. So everything is going to be done over on that side, okay? As well as, you got it right, setting up Vercel Eve, okay? So I'm going to break this down, make it completely make sense. And I think this is going to be a new way that we're going to be doing the videos, okay? So let me go through some of the comments firstly so I can answer some of your questions. So Atava says, AI agents that build Next.js app, I think can be made using OpenClaw. Okay, we'll answer those things afterwards. That's a bit of a different topic. But this one, yes, he says it can spring out sub-agents for testing and talk to debugging. So main focus is that if you are new to the stream, that this AI agent is different from every other one because it can spawn sub-agents, it can ask questions, it's durable, and also how you go ahead and build it is entirely the simplest it's ever been with Vercel Eve, okay? Let me see, build Next.js apps, this will land us what you cooking today, this will land us high-paying tech jobs. Honestly, this is what's going to separate you from everyone else who's coding with AI, okay? And we're going to, of course, be diving through coding harnesses and all that stuff. So first step I want you to do is we're going to jump straight into the concept of what we're doing. So what I want you to do is open up, I like to use Warp. Now, you don't have to use Warp, okay? You can use any terminal for that matter. I'm going to pop open, let me just prepare the entire environment. So typically you want to have a second screen. It helps a ton, okay? But I like to work inside of documents and builds, all right? And then we're going to build our first app. So the first thing I want you to do is head over to the link in the description to sign up to Clerk, because we're going to need that to allow our users to sign in, to enable our billing, so that way we can gate the AI that we're going to create, okay? So I want you to go ahead and create an account. So in this case, I've already actually created an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in right now. Again, please use the link in the description. We have got a partnership with Clerk. It does help me do these videos for absolutely free, and I appreciate that a ton, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to quickly log in right now. And then once you're in, we can pause there, okay? So I want you just to pause at this point. The next step is I need you to install the Clerk CLI, okay? So I like to use PNPM. You can use NPM, whatever you want to do really, all right? So in this case, run this command, okay? So whichever one you're using, if you're new to the channel, you're kind of new to coding, it's fine, stick with NPM, but I would highly advise that you start looking at PNPM. It's got lots of benefits, okay? So in this case, I've already got Clerk and I can test by doing the following. In a terminal, I can type clerk -- version. And I can see I'm on version 1.5. Okay, I might need to upgrade mine to be fair. So if I type in Clerk update, let me see if there is an update. Yep, I'm already on the latest one. Okay, so once we've done that, you're going to go ahead and create your first Next.js app. So in this case, what I like to do is you can use a few commands here, but let's just say create next app. I want to show you from scratch how you can do it. So there's a CLI from Next.js, and you can see here, you can either use npm. And then again, if it says no command found, you need to install something called node onto your computer, okay? So I'm going to try and break it down again so it's easy for anyone to understand, okay? Now in this case, I'm going to be using pnpm. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to say pnpm, create next app. And then I'm going to call this one, let's call this one the Career AI Agent Demo, okay? So then we're going to go ahead and say, okay. And now you can see it starts building it out and it's going to ask me a couple of questions. I'm going to say customize settings, TypeScript, ESLint, React compiler, yes, yes, no, yes, everything pretty much the defaults. And the final one where it says, do you want to include the agents MD? Yes. Okay. Now, once that's done, it will install onto our computer. Okay. Now, mine might come up with a little error here because I've got a little bit of a check on, but yours will go through just fine. Then I'm going to go into that. So in this case, Career AI Agent Demo. I'm just going to get past this one little issue that I have. You don't have to do this. The reason why that happens, by the way, in case you're nerdy and you wonder, is basically I've got a special rule on which stops my setup installer, basically install any packages that are less than 7 days old. And this tends to be one of the issues. Okay. So, sorry guys, I just got off call. Let me get rid of that right now. Okay, let's carry on. They're trying to, 1 second. Give me 1 second, guys. Say I'm on a meeting. Okay, of all the times to get a call, I got one now. All right. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and carry on. So I've now installed it. Then I want to go and do cursor dot. Okay. In this case, I'm going to be using cursor here. You can use whatever you want. There's not a right or wrong answer. Okay. Now, once cursor opens up, we are in the agent view, the agent window. You can also be in the editor window. Absolutely fine. It's up to you, okay? So I'm going to close this old LinkedIn clone right now. In fact, I should have kept that running, but that's absolutely fine. Yeah, it's Defo Scott. That's exactly the reason. He said there was a recent exploit by a fresh package update. That's exactly why I've made my install steps a bit more secure. We'll talk about that inside the community. However, for the live stream, just know that that's the reason why, yeah. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and start the planning mode. So this is basically an empty project, okay? What I want you to do is we're going to actually use the Clerk CLI to set this up. So clerk init is the command I want you to do. Now, inside of the agent view, if we do Command J, we can actually open up a terminal, okay? So you see create AI agent demo. Firstly, I want to do git init, okay? And this will actually initialize the git repo. Then I want to do pnpm, oops, not this one, sorry. I want to do clerk init inside of here. Okay, so clerk init. So detecting the framework, and now it's logged in as my account, and then it says which clerk application do you want to use. So if I go all the way down, I can actually create a new application here. So I'm going to create a new application. Let's call this one, and this is setting up a clerk account for me. So we're going to say AI. Let's just call it career AI agent YouTube, because that way I can keep track of them. Yeah. Someone goes, light mode cursor. I know. I do it because there's no reason why I do it. I got caught out. Yeah. This should be dark mode. I'll change it in a sec. Okay. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and it's installed the dependencies. It installs Clerk and it says you have uncommitted changes. That's fine. Proceed. Y. Yes. Okay. Install agent skills. Y. Yes. And then it says which install should it go ahead and use. We're going to say pnpm DLX. Okay. Now, it's going to try and install the skills. So at this point, it's installing the Clerk CLI skill. Now, by default, it covers most of them, but Claude Code has to be included as well. So you can go through, really find any agent that you're using, press spacebar to enable it, and then press enter. And then we're going to do project. The reason why I highly recommend you guys use project is because it means that if any other agent picks this up, it's going to be picked up by them as well. If you do global, it's only going to be on my machine. But project is in the repo itself, okay? So then it's going to install 22 more skills. So we're going to do the same thing. Say, yep, we're good with that. Project, symlink, absolutely fine, and proceed, okay? And that's it. Clerk init is done. And what that just did, guys, is actually a ton of steps behind the scenes. So if we go over here now, I believe it did it inside of my other account. So I need to log into my team account. And if you aren't logged in, it's going to log you into your account. So at this point, I'm just logging into my team account. And what we should see is it's created an entire app for us. So let's go over here and you can see like career AI agent YouTube. Okay. Now you can see, look at this. Boom. We have an entire project set up. Okay. So we need to actually run our app in order to kick things off. But I want to show you what it actually did in the files. If we go to the files over here and we go down to our .env.local, it actually added in our secret key, our publishable key, a bunch of things, as well as inside of here. Notice how inside of our page, it actually added in the following. So in here, we go to our layout. I believe it did it. Look, Clerk provider, it set this up for us. And then it added the sign-in page and a sign-up page. And it also set up a proxy.ts file, whereby if we want in the /sign-in or sign-up pages, we're just saying that those are the public routes. Everything else is basically off route, right? So if it's not a public route, we're going to send them to a sign-in page. That's effectively what it did. It set all of that up on its own, okay? So what's really cool here is you see this install prompt. We actually don't need to do that because we actually already did this, right? But what you could do is in the background, you could actually run that if you wanted to. So you can have your agent kind of kick things off and just add the install screen and the demo screen and all that stuff. So we're going to do that, right? We're going to go ahead and press paste. And then I'm going to go ahead and change this model to Fable 5. So I'm going to show you Fable 5 today because it's fun. It's awesome to use, right? So we're going to go ahead and put Fable 5. Again, do you need Fable 5? No. Sonic can do this perfectly fine, okay? So I'm going to be Fable 5. We're going to be in max and I'm going to be in high mode today. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. So this is now spinning this off. Now, what I want you to know is the shortcuts for this window, right? So typically they all follow the same shortcuts. Command B is the left sidebar. And then this is the app I was building before. And then Command Option B is the right sidebar. Okay. So get used to that. It will help you out a ton. Okay, so in this case, I still love how there's a light mode, dark mode battle going on, right? So I'll set up Clerk authentication in this project using the Clerk CLI. So it's already done this right now. You can see it's already actually checking, and it's basically going to handle that for us. Okay. And yeah, again, you can use any model that you really want. There's no right or wrong with that. Okay, the next step, this will be up and running before we know it. So now that that's happening, I want you to go over to Vercel Eve. Okay. And while this is happening, what we want to do is we've got a bunch of changes here that have already been applied. So if we look at the change history over here in this one, this means that since we initialized this Git repo, there are 74 files that haven't been committed to the repo, okay? Which makes sense. But this is basically a brand new branch, right? We have pretty much nothing has been pushed at all, okay? So while this is happening, I'm actually going to commit these changes before it makes any more changes, right? So I can actually do a following. I can either say commit and push, commit and create PR, whatever the case. Or we could do, you know what? Let's be patient here. Let's let it do its thing. BC like appears to be stuck. So I'm watching kill version check. So I should have actually already said, like I already did Clerk init, proceed with other steps, right? And I'm going to press Command Enter to override that. And now it will force that into the chat. Okay. So we're going to commit these changes, and you can see like it's starting to commit, and we can actually start a multitasking, and we can run that task in parallel inside of Cursor. So in Cursor, we can actually run that in parallel. So you see it's starting multitasking. Basically, it's quite handy if you're doing more than one thing at a time. And you can see here, clerk-auth setup. When you see this inside of Cursor, it means it's a sub-agent. A sub-agent means another agent that is not blocking the main thread. So basically the main thread being the main agent talking to me, that's basically created this new sub-agent and said, go do some work while I carry on talking to the main dude, right? So in this case, we're the main dude, right? It carries on talking to us, and you see how it spun off a sub-agent over here, right? So multitask tends to kick that into gear. If you're using Claude Code and you're in Ultra Code, then it tends to be workflows that can do that, or you can have background tasks. And in Codex, I believe you have background tasks as well, okay? So I've handed the clerk set off to a background agent that will pick up where we left off, skipping clerk next to since you already handled it. And now if we click into these, we can actually see what they're doing. So now all these agents are basically going off and starting some work and looking into things, right? So it's going to go ahead and commit things. It's going to go ahead and do a bunch of stuff there, right? Now in the background, we want to prepare ourselves for this, okay? Now the typical way that you would work in parallel is right now, we're going to wait until this has committed a bunch of changes. So that way we have a base, and we're going to push that base to GitHub. And the reason why I want you to push it to GitHub is because then we can safely have lots of agents working on different work trees off of the initial branch. Now you can do that locally, but it's not a good, like I want to teach you the correct way of doing this, okay? So these two agents are working now. Now I want to bring your attention to something which one of our awesome subscribers in the chat at the moment, Athava, I believe, gave us a really nice link, and this one is actually really, really handy, and I'm so glad he shared this, which is why I love the live chat. So you guys can see here, one thing I've noticed when I'm using Claude Fable 5 is it has a totally different behavior to something like Sonny or Opus, especially Opus, which has been my main driver for a long time. Claude Fable 5 has been a lot more, it's basically well geared towards let it run on its own for a long time, and you basically don't have to be involved in the process as much. So this is a really, really handy guide, and I'm now popping it inside the chat. I popped it in the link in the chat. I would really recommend you give this a read, and it has a bunch of really useful suggestions. For example, it tells you a lot of what Fable 5 is good for. So long horizon autonomy, so basically giving it a task and just disappearing and coming back, as well as like complex workflows, code reviews, debugging, a bunch of other stuff, right? And it gives you also good samples of what you should be doing, okay? So consider all effort levels and so forth. And that's a big mistake that I see people doing. They're like, oh my God, Claude Fable 5 is burning through all my tokens. Yeah, what effort level are you on? I'm on Ultra Code. Well, of course you're going to burn through your tokens, right? Especially if you're on extra high or you're on any of those modes, right? So you really want to be careful. And if you're just doing basic stuff, you really don't want to go and just smash it on super high and so forth. I'm doing this now because we're pretty much dialed in. We don't have to, I'm not really worrying about the bill here for this, okay? Like I want to show you guys how it works in high mode everywhere, Okay, but you don't need to be using high mode, and you don't need to be using Fable 5 for every single thing you do. Okay, so in this case, we can go down here, and I'd give you just go and read this yourself, but it's really, really good, right? One thing it does very well: delegate independent subtasks to sub-agents and keep working while they run. Intervene if a sub-agent goes off track or if is missing relevant context. Okay, as well as a memory system, as well as a few situations like this, right? So I'd really recommend give this a read, or give it to an agent and ask it to explain it to you. Okay, so commit agent has finished its work. So in this case, we go over here. Let's have a look. Did it commit the work? So we can see, we can click on the commit agent, and we can see this agent committed the following: add Next.js 16 app with clerk authentication. 21 files not pushed. Okay, that's great. Let's actually come back here, and we can see, no, we still have a bunch of, oh yeah, look, 54 uncommitted changes now. And we have another agent still working. So if we click on this one is setting up our clerk setup, okay? So in a moment, when this one is done, we can actually go ahead and just commit that, and then we're all good to go, okay? Now, what I do like to do, this is more a question for you guys. Do you prefer me using the editor window or the agent's view when I'm teaching you? Okay, so in this case, the editor window is this one here. Okay, so if I go to LinkedIn AI clone over here, so it wasn't this one, was it? Was it the LinkedIn AI clone? Was it this one? No, it wasn't this one. It was Let me open the project here. So let me go to my project. One sec, guys. Documents, builds. Okay. Career AI agent demo was the one. Yeah, it's today at this time. So now I'm in the photo. So Athava says he prefers the agent view, right? But I think what I might do is just have this on the side so I can show you sometimes, because like, some of you are saying editor view as well, right? So I think at times it's worth showcasing to you guys, a bunch of stuff like that's actually happening in the code base, okay? So in this case, you can see if we go to our layout, all of these buttons have been added from Clerk, the initial setup prompt they gave us, okay? If we go into Clerk-auth setup, you can see here, look, it's already done it for us. Like, it added these buttons, the layout, and so forth. Okay, and now this one is just going to go ahead and wrap it up. It's pretty much at the end of its run, and then it would be pretty much good to go. Now, to run this app, very, very easy. We just go to our agents or page.tsx. Let's go ahead and package.json. I just want to check one thing. Let's go to package, and you can see here you run your scripts. Now, typically these scripts remain the same, but it's always worth knowing how things work. Right, so when you run stuff like pm dev, you should know that the script is actually being called from here. And I always like to teach that extra step, because sometimes you might see a command in a project which is completely new, and you're like, well, that doesn't work in any other project. It's probably a custom script. Okay, so in this case, we're going to do pnpm dev because I'm using pnpm. Now this will spin up the app, and as you can see, it's using 3001, the port, because we've already got something on 3000. In fact, I'm going to kill that port. So I'm just going to kill 3000. You don't need to worry about that. Don't worry about this one. I can clear that. Let's go ahead and do pnpm dev. And now you can see I'm running on 3000. And let's go ahead and get let me get a window somewhere. I need where is it gone? I need another window. Let's store it over here. And I'm going to make sure that this one is a fresh window. So let's do a new one, localhost 3000. Okay. So this will go ahead and spin up our app, and you can see we now have a sign-in screen, okay? So once you've done that clerk prompt, you should get to this, and now we've got our sign-in all set up for us. Again, we didn't have to do anything, guys. So easy, so simple to do it, just 2 prompts, and the job was done, okay? And this agent is just wrapping up. Again, can you see how this can last quite long? So I'd really recommend sometimes you don't need to really kind of let these go on and on and on. At this point, I'm pretty happy with what it's done. I'm going to stop what it's doing. We can actually stop the execution here by clicking stop. I can go ahead and get out of multitask mode, and I can simply say commit all changes, because I know that this is all good. Okay. In this case, this is doing a little test for me. Where is this right now? This is Clerk backend. Oh, these are our skills. Sorry, these are all the skills, right? Commit all changes. I'm going to go ahead and get it to commit everything. Right. Now, the reason why I like to show you the editor window as well is because you can also do commits from here. And again, you should know how this works. In my opinion, if you're going to do serious development, you should know how Git flow works. So if you go into the graph here, you can see this is our initial commit, right? The one that was committed 6 minutes ago. Next up, we're going to commit all of this. I've told my agent to do it. So in this case, commit all remaining changes. And then in this case, a background agent, including the previously excluded tooling files, while still keeping the environment variables out. Okay. So in this case, it's spinning up another one. And you can see how Fable 5 sometimes goes a bit over the top. So it's going to be really in depth with it. That's fine if you don't have a worry about budget, but if you do, I don't recommend it. So that committed, and now you can see, look, it created another commit. Now all a commit is basically checkpoints for your app. So basically now we have 2 checkpoints. The first checkpoint we see over here added in a bunch of files. So you can see here, we've got all of these different files that were added in. So you can see here, all these files were added, and this is called a diff, right? If we go over here, you can see I can scroll down, and these include, by the way, the skills. Right, so even the skills, all of these things, all of this is basically included inside of that. If we were to kind of minimize everything, you see all these new files were committed at this point. And this means that if I make any mistake or my agent goes wild, then we can go ahead and revert to a previous checkpoint, okay? So at this point, I need to push this to, what's it called? I want to push this to GitHub. So if I do Command I here, I can also do it from this view. Okay, so I'm going to show you everything, how to do it inside of both views. So if I do Command I can go ahead and see it here. Or if I do Command E, I can go into the agent view inside of the editor window, okay? So in this case, I'm just going to do Command N, new chat with the agent. And over here, I'm going to change this, guys, to be, let's say, Opus 4.8. I don't need it to do some craziness here, just can do a simple task. I want to say, and I'm using Super Whisper for this. I'm going to have a little keyboard shortcut with the Option spacebar, and I'm going to say, using the GitHub connection, I want you to create a public repo and push this. Call the public repo Career AI Agent Demo YouTube. Okay, and in this case, you can see I talk to my AI all the time. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I've already connected my GitHub. At this point, if you haven't connected GitHub, it will either prompt you to do it or in your agent view. So if you go to your agent view over here, Command B, customize, you have tons of plugins, right? So they look different, but depending on what platform you're on, if you're on Codex, if you're on Claude Code, whatever the case, but all you need to do is type in GitHub typically, or the MCP. In this case, I've already got GitHub set up. This one is actually not plugged in. So let's see if it will work. I'll help create a GitHub repo. I've already got my GitHub connected to my terminal though. So in this case, as long as you got the MCP set up or you got your terminal set up, one way or another, your agent is connected in, okay? But if you're new, and I know a lot of you use Claude Code, then what I'd recommend you do is I'll show you over here. So this was a recent push I did on Claude Code. Go to customize. And if you go to your customize connectors, you can see here, look, GitHub integration, right? Simply go ahead and connect it. And now it can go ahead and access your GitHub stuff, right? And you can do this for everything. GitHub, Gmail, Clerk. I really recommend you include the Clerk one. So if we go to add browse connectors, for example, you want to install the Clerk one. So Clerk over here. Convex, they had one. Convex is in a different one, but in this case, you can use an MCP. GitHub, we already done in the previous part, okay? But for plugins, they have a bunch. So I believe is it here? No, okay. These are different ones. Skills, do they have a Convex one? Okay, so it's not here, right? But pretty much you can, they're spread out between the apps. But the point is every single company now has their own plugin that you can use, okay? So let's close this one off. So now we're pushed, okay? So in this case, if I go over to our agent view, and I'm going to make it a bit more simple now. So stop jumping between everything because I think it's a bit jarring for everyone. So it fell back to my GitHub CLI. That's fine for now, right? I'm not going to bother fixing that. Command Option B, and we can see we're on the local branch. And now what I'm going to do is do Command N. And if we go to this actual repo, so in this case, you can see if I go to local and new work tree, I can spin up a separate work tree. But firstly, let's just check this was actually pushed, okay? And this is why I like doing the editor view, because sometimes the editor view, if I press Command E, gives us more context about where things are. So in the editor view, in the graph down here, you can see that cloud right there tells me that it's pushed to GitHub, okay? So if I go ahead and I was to click into this, for example, and go ahead and do right, I can go ahead and press, or in fact, I can just go here and do it. I'll show you straight up. We go to GitHub, go to my repos, and there is a new repo that should be in here, Career AI Agent, okay? And you can see here, it's pushed everything that we're doing now. So as I build today, you can literally go ahead and copy, clone this and keep doing git pull to get the files that we're going ahead and changing, yeah? Okay, so you can see empty repo with Clerk already set up. So next step we want to do is set up Vercel Eve. Okay, so I'm going to go into cursor, and in this case, we're going to go ahead and do, we've got the main branch, and then we can do new work tree. And a work tree basically means we're forking from the main branch. So we can have, basically with work trees, you can have 10 agents all using their own copy of the main branch on your local machine. And that's really powerful, and you want to make sure you maximize that, okay? You can also have a cloud agent, which has its own isolated environment and so forth. But in this case, a work tree is going to be absolutely fine for us, okay? So what I want you to do is, or in fact, because we're only going to be doing one thing here, we can run it locally. So because I want to show you the file changes as it does it in this case. So let's go ahead and have it on the side. I'm going to show you Vercel Eve. Okay, so let's go over to vercel.com/Eve. And then you can see we're going to select these over here, for humans or for agents. We're going to click on for agents, and we're just going to install this. Okay, now you can give this to your agent, or again, you can just do Command J. And you see I've got a terminal on the right. I can go here. I can do I can clear this terminal by doing just right click and clear. And now I want you to do the following. I want to just paste this in and install this into this project. So all I'm doing here is installing Vercel Eve skills. So my agent is now going to be a pro at using Vercel Eve. Okay. So now if I do enter project, remember what I said? You want to install per project, not globally, because that way any other agent can go ahead and do it. Okay. So in this case, symlink, yes, which means we don't have to same install everywhere. Proceed with installation, yes. And just like that now, if we go to changes, cool. I've got 3 uncommitted changes. Okay. So I can go ahead and either commit these from here, or the easier way is I can go into the editor view, I can commit, stage all the changes, and I can say, for example, added, let's just call this one Vercel Eve skills. Boom. And you see how I just done that? And now this is locally here, but if we click sync, it pushes it to GitHub. And now you can see my local and GitHub are both at the same place. Okay. So again, if you like the new speed that we're doing, smash the like button. I'm really trying to break it down for you guys to kind of help you understand each step. And if you guys like that, let me know in the comments. Okay. So at this point now, we have a fresh branch. So really, really good starting point. Athava says, so will it be right to say that Eve is OpenAI's agent builder for Vercel? No. Remember, Vercel is the creator of Next.js. Next.js is a framework on top of React. Okay. So Next.js has become a gold standard for building web apps that are performant. Anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't know how to use Next.js. That's the truth. I'm sorry, this absolute truth. If you know Next.js, it's very powerful. It's awesome. Especially 16.3, they now have instant routing. Go check it out. It's really cool. Okay, but we had a problem in the space where agents were used everywhere, but no one had a consistent, easy way to build them. And this is where Vercel came up with Vercel Eve, because Vercel already had something called the agent stack. The agent stack had different areas that could help you out, like the AI SDK. They had the chat SDK. They had all these different amazing things that I used in tons of builds before. But Vercel Eve is the framework, just like Next.js, that is repeatable, that they want to push heavily. And in my opinion, it's what was needed in the space. Okay. So we just added the skill, which means now our agent is a pro at this. Okay. And now I'm going to literally showcase how I would do it. So in this case, if we click on read docs, I would come into here, and firstly, even if I get my agent to do something, I will always understand what it's doing. Okay. So the first thing we need to understand is that what Eve does is it basically allows us to have agents inside of our app really simply. Okay. So at this point, to get things set up, I can go to getting started, install Eve, scaffold your first agent, give it a tour and run it locally. Now you can do it a couple of ways. You see, we've got the quick start, we've got the manual installation, project files, add your first tool and so forth. So you can do this manually, but I want to go ahead and literally copy this link. So I'm just copied this link over here, and I'm in Arc browser, so I can do Command Shift C. And then if I go over here, I'm going to paste this in. I'm going to say, using your Vercel Eve skills, I want to create a starter agent. Okay. So a starter agent, and we're just going to get a starter agent done to set up. Okay. We're going to be using Fable 5. Let's go ahead and do that. Now, what you can do is what I highly recommend to be a lot more efficient is you start in plan mode. Okay. So plan mode is what we should always be starting with. In this case, I'm going to click OK. Oh, and again, make sure your voice thing works correctly. So in this case, I just corrected it. Using your Vercel Eve skills, I want to create a starter agent. Okay. And it's got access to this. So in this case, what it should be doing is initializing the agent. It should go ahead and do manually, or it'll basically go through this. But what we want to do is basically create an agent that has access to a tool, right? So in this case, we just create one tool, like the get weather tool, for example. okay? And then we want to run it. And the really cool part about this whole thing, we can run just the agent through the CLI, okay? So previously you have to build the entire app out, but no, we can actually run just the agent through the CLI to test it all works, okay? So firstly, let's see what it does under the hood, okay? Now, one piece of advice that I'd give is if you're using Cursor, I explicitly say sometimes, I want Fable 5 to be used as the brain, the big brain behind everything. And then for all the quick steps, I tell it I want it to use Composer 2.5. And that's been a real hack. Okay, so I'll show you how we can do that afterwards. Eve supports 2 setups. Where should the starter agent begin? Inside this Next.js app or as a separate child project. We're going to use it inside of the app. The default model Anthropic Claude Sonnet 5 routes through the Vercel AI Gateway and needs a credential. How do you want to provide it? So basically we can add in an AI Gateway API key. Okay, so I'm going to add that one in and click continue. Now, while it continues making a plan, I'll show you where we can get that key. Okay, so if we go over to Vercel, in this case, I've got vercel.com, and now I've got tons of different accounts, so I need to make sure I'm on the right one. But in this case, I believe if I go to the AI Agent Gateway, so AI Agent Gateway is really, really cool. Basically, all it is instead of having a key for OpenAI, a separate key for Claude, a separate key for Gemini, Vercel made a gateway, which is, as it sounds, is one place where it has one key. And basically from that one key, we can switch models and it bills us from one account. Okay. So if we go to the API keys section over here, click this, I can create an API key. Okay. Now I can do this in a couple of places. I believe this is not the right account that I want to be doing this on though. I just want to make sure that I have the right keys in a few spots. Okay. So I need to do it in this account. Okay. So let's go check on this before we create that key. But in this case, it created a plan, it pitched the plan to us, and we can see that context, it's already figured out where we are. It's going to go ahead and do the Eve init, and it's going to scaffold Eve into the existing app. So what it's going to do is going to create an instructions MD. Remember, the instructions are brain, agent.ts. That's basically all it takes to basically create it. Then it's going to read the bundle docs, add the first tool, get weather, add the credential, and then it needs to go ahead and basically, in this case, start Eve in the background, wait for the server, create a session, post the session and so forth. Okay, so we're going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say build, and you can do it a few ways. You can build locally or build in parallel. So this is where you can spawn off sub-agents. But in this case, let's just build locally, and let's go ahead and click on OK. And let's give it an AI key, API key in the meantime. So let's go to environment.local. And again, you need to hide this. This is like typically very sensitive. You would not show secret keys. I'm going to invalidate all of these. But here, API gateway key is going to be called the following. So it's going to be this one here. So AI gateway key. And over here, I'm going to create a new API key. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and do the following. So I'd say something like more career AI agent demo key, right? Expiry for this one, I'm saying no, spend quota, no. I'm going to create an API key. Now, I'm not going to show you this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this. It's going to pop up a key. I'm going to come here. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to save my environment local file, and that will be ready to go. Okay. So now I'll run it through. I'm creating the API key. It's now popped up on my screen. So obviously I'm not showing that because you're going to be able to use my key, which will bill me. I've now saved that environment local file and I've now closed it. Okay. So now the whole thing has been done and I have my key and it's been saved. So it created a key and I've now popped it inside of my environment local file. So now you definitely don't want to expose that. Okay. Now, at this point, it's going to start scaffolding Eve into our app. Okay. Following package was not found and will be installed. So now it's going to go ahead and run that command. And in this case, we can see it's now setting up the agent folder for us. Okay. So you can see here, it said the following. So I want to try and show you as much as we can with this. So let's have a look. So it's installed the dependencies. In this case, it found it's already scaffolded, collect the intent. What should the agent do? This becomes this always on purpose. Where should it be reachable? Web chat, Slack. Look at that, guys. You can have channels where you can reach it, remember? And look, you can do it all through the API, right? Eve channels or CLI, sorry. Eve channels, add Slack, and so forth. Credentials run through Vercel Connect, which provision the bot token and verify inbound webhooks. So it handles all that stuff for you, right? So we can do that one, but in this case, it's just done bare minimum defaults, okay? So the scaffold succeeded. Let's see what it created. If we go to agent, now it created an agent.ts file. So it's basically had a default one with Claude Sonnet 5, the instructions MD, UI helpful. I mean, very simple, but it's basically a helpful assistant. That's not very useful, but it is there. And then we've got a first tool, which is get weather. Okay, so I'm going to show you in this view because I hate that code view. Let's go over here and I can show you the tools. Get weather has been created. And you can see that we've got our first. I appreciate you guys so much because let's show them the support. Thank you so much, guys. Just destroy that like button. Means the world. Okay. So let me know. Are you preferring this style of content, right? Because I really feel like it's way more valuable than just copying prompts and doing what I'm doing, okay? This is way more valuable. It's teaching you guys how to create active AI agents, okay? Like scalable ones. So in this case, we're just going to take an input, which is the city, and we're just going to return a stubbed bit of data, okay? So in this case, stub meaning it's just dummy data, right? And then the channels over here is eve.ts. So you can see, look, lets the Eve 2e and the Vercel deployments reach the deployed agents, opens a local host for Eve dev, and is ignored in production. This placeholder would not be allowed browser requests in productions. Replace it with your app's auth provider like auth or clerk, right? Or use none for a public demo. So this is basically how we can authenticate that agent so it's securely talking to our user. Okay, so this is basically going to be replaced with clerk in a moment as well. Okay, so let's go back over here and we can see, look, it's actually running it. So it's running it locally, and I'll show you how we can do this in a sec. Now, if you want to see how that actually works, if we go to package.json, right now we don't have an Eve script, okay? So I'm going to get it to create an Eve script because all it's doing there is if we go ahead and do this, you can see there will be a session over here where we can actually do it ourselves, but if we were to let that run in the background, but in the meantime, I can show you how you can run it. So if we create a new terminal, and then here, what you do is you basically, I'm just going to make this huge, is we can go ahead and say PM Eve, and then we can say Eve, I believe it's agent or Eve agent run or Eve dev. I believe it's Eve dev, PM Eve dev. And you can see here that create AI agent demo / deploy. So you can see to see our agent go live. But if I say hi, now you can see I'm actually talking to an agent. Hi, how can I help you today? Who are you? Okay, and you can see now the agent is live and this entire thing is happening through here. I'm an AI assistant here to help you out, blah, 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 blah. And you can say, what tools do you have? Okay, so in this case, you can say, look, here's a rundown of my tools. It's got a bunch of tools, but then it's also got get weather. So these are the default tools that it gets shipped with, but then get weather was a new one that we gave it. And we know that because we have tools over here, get weather. Okay, so get the current weather of the city. So if I said, okay, in this case, get the, or we can actually talk, we can say, get the weather for London. Okay, it's going to go ahead and just return sunny at 72 temperatures, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. But in this case, look, it made a call and it says the weather in London right now is sunny with a temperature of 72, about 22 degrees, nice day out there. All right, really, really cool stuff. And again, right now, this is nothing besides Vercel Eve through the Vercel AI Gateway. Right, so really, really powerful stuff. And you see how easy this was to get a full functioning agent up and running. Like there's never been an easier way to do that, right? Period. It's really, really like amazing how it works, okay? Now we need to go ahead and actually connect it. Remember the channel, eve.ts? This is a placeholder auth, right? This is not good for production. We need to go ahead and fix that part, okay? So first things first, is it finished over here? So let's go ahead and see what it did. The Eve starter agent is set up and verified working end to end. So it went ahead and used the init command to add Eve to our app. And then you can see that to use it interactively, run this from the project root. Exec Eve dev. You don't need to write execute. You can just write Eve dev and it will open up the Eve dev, right? And in this case, did I do that one? I did. Yeah, Eve dev. Okay, so you see how that's how you can run it. You can also do that from here. If you do Command J, you can open up a terminal and you can see this pulls up the terminal over here and I can say pnpm Eve dev. And just over here as well, it will go ahead and run it. So I can say hi, and you can see it's literally running over here. Okay. And again, if you're wondering, well, how is this even working again? Like, is this on the Next.js or like, well, what's he doing here to make it work? I don't know if we've connected this to Next config yet. So you see, it's not connected to our Next app yet. We're just running it directly inside of our folder structure. All right. We've got a question here. Is that Vercel gateway key gives access to AI, or we want to give AI keys stored in Vercel? So the Vercel AI gateway key, I have my card on my Vercel account. I've created a new key, and basically you can specify which models are allowed. And then simply enough, you give it to Vercel Eve. And now Vercel Eve, we can basically go to our agent. So remember the agent.ts over here, and we just simply say use this model. Okay, and in here, what you'll notice is if I do control space, I have tons of models from Vercel Eve, from Vercel AI Gateway. So you can use literally any model you want, right? And they're all supported here, and they all build through the Vercel AI Gateway. So rather than having different keys and different things, and you want to switch models, in this case, no, I can just literally hot swap this out and be Kimi 2.6 if I wanted, right? So if I said something like Kimi, look, Moonshot, Kimi 2.6, boom, now it's Kimi 2.6, okay? So if I go ahead and do this now, PM Eve dev, this is literally going to be on Kimi 2.6 now, okay? Hey, so look at this, hi. And just like this, look, Moonshot, Kimi 2.6, the user said hi, and look at this, hello, how can I help you today? Boom, it's that simple, okay? Super easy to go ahead and run an agent. This is like a game changer. This is why I'm so excited to teach this on stream today. All right, Atava goes, agreed, Sonny, it's the fastest way of setting up an agent. I tried Google ADK for creating an agent, I just drowned in the document. Dude, 100%. That's why I'm always pro methods like this, because this is going to be the way you're going to see everyone be doing it in the future. Just like how Next.js caught on, this is going to be the next thing I'm telling you, okay? So Command J, hide this now. Now let's move on to something a bit more interesting. So a couple of things worth noting is the scaffolded channel uses placeholder auth, which blocks browser requests in production. The file has a comment suggesting you swap in Clerk, which you already used before deploying. This is why I wanted you to set up Clerk as well. Okay, so let's go back to Eve. Let's go back to the documentation, which I believe was over here, read docs. Is it possible to give out an AI key instead of a Vercel Gateway? I believe you can. Yeah, I believe you can. When you set it up, there's a place where you can give your own key. You can check it out for yourself though, but I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah. Okay. Now, so in this case, the gateway model ID needs AI Gateway Vercel OIDC token with Vercel link. A direct provider model uses the provider's AI SDK. Yeah, so you can use it like this. So you see this? You can just pop in the SDK of what you want to use, and then you pass in the API key. And that means you can also use your private models and so forth. If you have a local model that you basically run through a tunnel, which I've done before, running on a Mac Mini, I can tunnel it and access it whenever I want. That's another way you can do it as well, okay? So now we've got the quick start done, and we've already streamed the session, right? In this case, like we don't need to even worry about this stuff, but you see how it's running locally on the session, okay? Now, setting up with a coding agent, in this case, you can go ahead and set up Eve agent. What's this? Oh, this is cool. So if we were to actually set it up, I could have just used this instead. But I could have come down here and click copy, and it would have actually just helped me do that. But that's fine. We just gave it the entire context. Okay, next up, we need to go ahead and do the agent.tss set the model. We've got reasoning efforts. So this is how you change the reasoning models. And this is the easiest I've ever seen, okay? So now if we go over to this, what I'm going to do just for a little while, I'm going to keep this in the highlight because I think it's easier to show. So if we do command, you can see that reasoning. And now I got all of the reasoning methods, okay? And I believe these change if I was to go ahead and change this. So if this became Kimi 2.6, I believe these also, oh no, I think they're all default. Okay, so it's only if it's going to be supported. But in this case, say I want to do extra high, I can go ahead and do that and so forth, okay? So you can make it, again, have that approach. Same with compaction. Now, if you don't know what compaction is, if I'm talking to an agent for ages, there is a specific context window. Prime example, GPT-5.5 has around 250,000 tokens before it's full, right? Whereas Opus Fable have 1 million. Okay, so when it gets full, it doesn't just stop talking to you. What's actually happening behind the scenes is it's basically summarizing the big context into a small one, which means that yes, details can get lost, so it's worth knowing. But this is basically where you can set a threshold. When it's at 75% full, maybe begin compaction, right? Whereas the default is 0.9, okay? So that's something to know about. And this, by the way, is known as a harness. Okay, so basically we're setting up like a coding harness here. Okay, you've got runtime limits, workflows, all this kind of stuff. So you can really dive into this as much as you want. But let's dive into the bit where we actually need to fix the Eve, okay, the channels. So going over to Eve, channels, how users reach your agent, the channel contract, the base Eve HTTP channel, and authoring custom channels. So step one is we can do it through this, local dev, right? This is when I do Eve dev. This is how I can talk to it through a terminal. But we want to obviously talk to it through our Next.js app. So how the hell do we get that to work? Okay, well here you can see firstly we've got our Eve down here. So we've got the following Vercel OIDC, local dev, and then we've got the Clerk authentication. So in this case you can see for full auth model and helper list, C auth and route protection. And then down here I believe they have, what was it? I think it was, I found it before, but it was quite a nice little integration. So you even got it over here, like guides Next.js, wraps the Next.js config. So that's connected to Next.js first as a first step. Okay, so that way we can actually look at it through our next app. So Eve ships a Next.js frontend and an Eve agent as a single project. Wrap your code config with Eve to run both from one dev server and one Vercel deploy. Use Eve agent, finds the amount of routes on its own, so there's no cause to configure and no URL to go ahead and set up, okay? So in this case, if we want to go ahead and set this up, I can either do this manually, very, very simple, or I can just go ahead and copy this, throw it over to our agent, and I can now say, set this up for our next app, okay? Go ahead and pop that in, carry on, okay? And again, what I would recommend is you commit at each interval, okay? Now, setting up Clerk is the one that I actually want you to do now more than anything. Is I'm sure they had a really nice kind of Clerk step. So, okay, what I'll do is I'll show you how I did it previously. Because it did it quite nicely for Clerk before, and I want to show you how we can do that. And in fact, in order to do that nicely, I want to actually show you an example of a code base that we used before. So what I can do is let me go back to Warp, and let me go back to my previous build, which was the LinkedIn build, I think it was called. Let's find it. So it was open recent LinkedIn AI clone. This one, LinkedIn AI clone, July, and let me open this one up to have a look. Okay, so over here you can see that we wrapped that one with Eve, the next config, and if we look at that agent folder, look at the channels, we look at eve.ts, you can see that we have a clerk-auth provider. So we created a Clerk client, we authorized it with the Clerk secret key and the publishable key, and then basically what we're doing here is we're creating a authenticated request, and what we're doing is we're passing this through to the Eve channel. Okay, so look, verifies the Clerk session on the incoming request, and because the AI create agent is a pro-only feature, enforces the pro plan. So this is actually where you can enforce the actual pro level before the user even gets access at that level. So you can gate it on the front end, but you can also gate it over here as well. So this is pretty cool. So you can actually go at this level as well. But without even knowing that or having that example, I'm going to show you how you can do it. Okay, so let's go back to our code. And let me close this one again, or actually minimize this one. Otherwise, it's going to get confusing. Okay, so this one here, placeholder. So I'm going to copy this. And let's go back to our agent. Where does it go? It goes over here. And then somebody asked the question, what about deployment of this agent? Is where do we deploy it separately or with Next.js? So you can deploy your Eve agent either by using /deploy, and it'll run you through the deployment steps, or you can bundle it in a single deployment with your Next.js app by adding in the with Eve step. So in this case, remember our next config over here, you see how it's added the with Eve wrapper around our next config. That's all it takes, right? You just add this with Eve, and now it bundles in our entire Eve setup. You don't have to do anything else. It literally does that, okay? And you can see, as part of the setup, it's actually created a to-do for wiring clerk-auth into the agent's channel to replace the placeholder auth. So it already figured this out, and it's now doing that, okay? So in this case, we're going to let it do its thing and basically go ahead, and it's going to set this up after installing the Clerk backend. So it's got to set up the Clerk backend and basically connect this up. So this is going to get replaced with Clerk authentication. Okay, and that way we can basically have it so when our user interacts with our agent, it runs through their Clerk user. And this is really handy for a ton of reasons, because we can basically now say that this is the user I'm talking to. You can track that user's behavior, you can access their stuff inside the database, whatever you want to do, right? But this is a much better way of using it as opposed to letting every single person use it, for example, okay? So install Clerk backend. And of course, you can have anonymous access if you want to and so forth, okay? Now, once that's done, we want to have a look at that. In the meantime, while that's happening, you can see like Sandbox, the agent's isolated bash environment, including built-in file tools, seeded workspace, backend lifecycle, or network policy. So every single time it's running, it has an isolated bash environment. So what does that mean? Well, basically, every time we start a conversation, it starts in its own little box. And we basically have set up what that box has access to. And this is the way you want to have agents set up, right? You don't want to have it access to everything. So in this case, you can see it already has a bunch of tools like bash, read, write files. And this is only going to be under its own workspace, its isolated workspace, okay? In this case, you can see, look, when we were to do anything inside of a tool, we can actually call that sandbox and basically write files to that sandbox, do a bunch of stuff in that sandbox, for example, run Python scripts inside the sandbox, and then we can be sure that when it starts a new chat, it's not going to have any of that damage in the new chat, right? So this is really, really important to take note of, okay? So sandboxes are very, very important. Now, you can connect this to a bunch of backends. So for example, by default, it runs with Vercel Sandbox. But of course, if you have Docker, micro sandboxes, whatever you want to do, you can also go ahead and have them run up and set up as well. Okay, so you can have these running in your own environment if you want to. You're not like super tied in to just using Vercel. They give you options to basically go ahead and use other things. Okay, so if we head back over here now, you can see installed Clerk, and then go into channels, Eve, and now you can start to see some changes are being made. So let's have a look. So here we can see Clerk session. It's basically getting the authenticated request, and it's checking if the request state is authenticated, skip fall through. Otherwise, we go ahead and check if there's no user, it doesn't return the authentication, right? Otherwise, it returns authenticator is Clerk, principal ID and principal type. This basically defines, it tells Eve, who am I speaking to, okay? And then attributes, we're basically passing in the session ID if it exists, okay? And in a moment, you can see that app users signed in through Clerk. And you can pass in a bunch of these channels. So this is like a few ways that we can use it. So we can use it locally. We can use it either through the Eve 2E. Basically, this means like the if we deploy it on Vercel, and also for Clerk sessions, right? So these are three different like channels that we're supporting at the moment. And now let's see, it's gonna be done in a second. Type check was okay. And then it just runs a little sample check. So in a moment, this will be done and it's true, right? So by far the easiest way to set everything up, okay? So, and then if you see here, it's a good point actually as well. In proxy.ts, this is a middleware. So what does this mean? It means that every single request in our app, when we have Clerk set up, a benefit about using Clerk is that you can basically, any request that goes through the app, whether it be a GET request, a POST request, requesting a page or any access, you can check for authentication. So one thing we need to do is basically specify that the /Eve route, which is how we talk to an agent, that is also public, okay? Eve route agents run their own authentication walk, so they have their own way of authenticating, like we saw Clerk session, Vercel IDC, local dev. So basically we need to skip the Clerk redirect here. So we basically say that this is a public route. So don't stop me at the Clerk middleware, right? So this is something, again, it handles for us, right? So at this point it's running. And then let me check if it's one of your terminals. Stop the stale dev. So it just killed my terminal effectively. Yeah, so it just killed mine. And now it's going to run it on its own and it's testing out. So here we can see the Arc browser is holding. So now it's running at localhost 3000. And what we should be able to see in a sec is if I open this up. I don't know why I keep losing my things. Let's pop this back over here. And then let's have localhost 3000, okay? So we have the Create AI agent. Let's go ahead and continue. So I need to log in. I log in with my account. And again, you see how we didn't have to do any complex setup. Clerk just was set up so easily. One of my favorite reasons about Clerk, we sign in. And at the same time, if we go to our Clerk dashboard, you will see it will now change. So if we go here and we hit a refresh, because I've just signed in as a user in a moment. So did this connect to the right one? Am I in the right thing? Create AI agent, YouTube. Let's go to our users. Yep, here. So if we go to overview now there, that's why, yeah. So now we can see the user. Perfect, okay? So right now we have /feed, which doesn't exist, okay? So right now we're trying to go to a page which don't exist, but on the home screen, look at this, Create AI agent. We have a whole interactive flow. If I type in hi here, oh, hang on a minute, I didn't build anything, so how the hell do we have that? Okay, so in this case, I'll show you, if I was to go over to the editor view. So going over here, popping this in the side, let's make this a bit smaller and let's do a deep dive into what's actually going on here. So you can see I have a chat, but I didn't build any of that. So how did this even happen? Okay, so part of Vercel making it so easy for you to set up an agent is simplifying that part. So right now, this is the home page, right? So page.tsx, we have this agent chat. So if I click into agent chat, you can see, well, this is something that actually our AI produced, but the main thing that I want you to pay attention to is the agent.send, okay? So agent equals, this is a React hook, which is why we've got use client. But whenever we have access to this agent model, all we need to do, guys, is have agent.send the message, and that will basically process sending it through. Now, when it comes to streaming the message back to us, how do we go ahead and showcase that? Well, you can see here, agent.data.messages is a real-time hook. So it's constantly listening and handling that for us. So now, if I was to go ahead and say hello, you can see here, it will go ahead and start popping in the message. So I can say, if I want to say, what's the weather in London? Okay, and again, this is just a little badge. We can throw that out the way over here. The weather in London is sunny with a temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can see how it was able to call the specific tool call as well. Okay, so all of this worked just by a very, very simple mechanism where we just have a form, and the form is literally just doing agent.send. And you don't need this, by the way. I don't know why it says void. You don't need that. Okay, this is just agent kind of overkilling it. And if it says it's busy, that's what's rendering that little kind of gap there. You know that when I say, for example, hi, you see that little marker there? We can make that look way nicer if we want to. Just be like a little loading indicator or whatnot. Okay, so easy to get this up and running. It's crazy. Okay, local code requests were admitted by local dev, which only applies on loopback hosts. In production, only Clerk-authenticated users and Vercel OIDC callers will get through. Cool, we're happy with that. We only want authenticated users to use the Career AI agent. Okay, so at this point, we have an agent. Now, how do we do some more useful stuff? How do I get my agent to go into a database, pull information out of a database, and then go ahead and basically say, okay, this is who I'm talking to. This is their job requests. This is their, more useful stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So if you've seen my channel before, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Convex, right? So Convex is a database platform. Now, one thing I really like about them is they've gone AI first very heavily. So I've actually installed the Convex CLI. So if you type in Convex CLI here, and again, you can use whatever database you want. I'm just using this to describe the database part. Okay, so I already have the Convex CLI set up, and I have Convex skills installed into my app. Okay, so now that that's done, well, we actually need to initialize it inside of our app. So what I want to do here is I'm going to say the following. So we're done here with this. Firstly, let's commit these changes because there's a lot of changes to get into the project. And you'll see here, these changes are too heavy. Something's gone wrong here. Okay, so anytime you see 1,000 commits, well, that's not right. So if we look at the actual editor flow, and this is something which a lot of people who are vibe coding will just be like, yep, absolutely fine. Well, firstly, you should not be committing this. This is workflow data. You see this? This is just literally running data. We should not be committing that. This is like when it's running. We don't need to commit this stuff. Okay, so here what I can say, the git change is way too big. Let's add the not necessary files to the git ignore. So basically what I'm doing is, again, you see as fuzzy text is fine, but you want to go to inside the docs. I believe they'll tell you all about this. But if we type in git ignore, git ignore. Thank you so much, Adava. I appreciate you. Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to say here, GitHub, mention. I'll show you. But anyway, you can see it for yourself, right? Yeah, the replay is always available. You can feel free to jump in. We also have Ivory Coast. What's up? I see you in the house, right? So you can see it added .eve, .workflow data, a bunch of stuff. So now if we look at the addition here, you can see, and what I like to do is add a diff view. I don't like it to be always like this. I like to see a diff view. So here, we can see I added in these. Now, what you'll see is if I go to my changes, 12 uncommitted changes. That's much better, right? So don't be someone who's just committing everything that comes into the mix. It's just going to make a huge mess, right? You're going to have a huge amount of stuff being committed. Then you're wondering, why is my stuff not committing? Why is my IDE slow? That's why, okay? So in this case, that was huge, 2.5 megabytes, so 17 megabytes. Oh, you'd never want to commit that, okay? So at this point, we're happy to commit the rest of them. I'd recommend at this point, you make a pull request, you pop that in, but over at this point, for the demo's sake, we're just going to commit this, okay? So we're going to commit. If I show you the graph, you see like added Vercel Eve skills, and then we've got a bunch of changes now, and our agent is going to go ahead and commit these changes. So it's reviewing the unstaged commit, and it's going to go ahead and pull these changes into a staging, and then it's going to pop a new commit over here. So in a second, you can let stage and commit Eve work, and in a sec, you can see boom, add Eve agent with clerk authentication, and these are all the changes which it just did. Okay, so when you're working locally, you can do this. So now we're going to sync those changes. All good. Cool. So now we have basically a fresh branch. Okay. So at this point now, I want to do something more useful, more powerful. That's going to allow us to do something like more effective. Okay. So I'm going to say, right. So I'm actually producing a career AI agent that the sole purpose for this agent is to help candidates review their profile, go and check for job listings, see if they're a relevant match. And we're going to do this by comparing their profile to the job listings out there, as well as helping them do things such as, like, the agent that I'm talking to will effectively be able to show me relevant jobs that will be suitable for me based on my profile match, as well as help me write resume changes to my resume, as well as help me write cover letters to send to these job openings. In order to achieve this, I need a Convex dummy database set up. So you need to set Convex up. You have access to the full Convex CLI, and I need you to seed the relevant schema data so we can test this out. Okay. So what I basically did here, guys, is I'm going to switch this into a plan mode. Is basically I've asked it to use the Convex CLI, which I've already set up, to go ahead and set up the backend. So we're basically building an entire dummy backend here, which is a real database, existing Convex, and I want it to basically puff out a bunch of sample jobs, resume data, my profile data, and grab vector embedding matches and all this good stuff. And basically, we're going to go ahead and have tools that our agent can access so it can go ahead and do useful things for us. And that's the way that we were able to get it to work in the beginning when it came to, say, for example, if I'm on LinkedIn and I want to see other jobs that I can basically match up with, this is the kind of process that would be on the line. So firstly, in order to get this set up, we need a database that we can have things pull from. So in this case, look, the Convex CLI is already authenticated. At this point, you would have to go ahead and it would just prompt you to authenticate it. So it's very easy to do that. So you can do the same thing on your end. And then we can see here. Let's go ahead and like data.json, environment, get environment list. So while it's happening, I want to showcase the actual other build that we had. So that way we can kind of get a picture of what's going on once we get there. So what we want to do now is, you see lib. So we've got the convex.ts file. We've got a Convex client. And then here, what my previous build we did is we had a Convex secret, which is only known from the Convex agent and us. And this is quite handy because that way we can make sure that it's a fully trusted connection, right? So no one else should know that secret. Typically, this is how webhooks work as well. You have a signature that you're verifying and so forth, right? And then we have these helper functions. Again, this is a custom way to do it, but we're going to see what it comes up with now, right? But in this case, it drafted out a plan. Let's see what it did, right? So install and initialize Convex, pm add Convex, configure it for us. It will go ahead and already set us up a project, add Convex dev ESLint plugin. Cool. Define the schema. So it's going to say users, clerk user, name, email, profile information. So in this case, it's got user ID, headline summary, skills, years of experience, location, desired roles, open to remote. And then it's got small bounded arrays for experience and education entries. These experience and education entries are going to be for basically like what experience, my previous workplace history, for example, okay? Then we've got job listings. In this case, title, company, location, remote, employment type, seniority, and so forth. And notice at this point, we're not gating, we're not adding billing in yet. We're just keeping it very simple, okay? Matches, resumes, cover letters, applications, and then that's pretty good for now. Then we're going to seed a bunch of data. And this is why I love AI, because we can seed all that data. So we have like example information. And then we've got some sample queries and mutations. So we can, for example, get profiles, get matches, for example, list the matches for a user and so forth. And then that looks good. The only thing that I would want to do here is ensure that we have vector embedding matches, okay? So all I would do here is I want to review the plan and say, make sure that this includes vector embedding similarity matches so that we can match a user's profile up with a similarity score or percentage on certain job matches that are closest to them. And what a vector embedding is basically we take some information, right? And this is, AI can understand like, you know, a text file or whatever the case, but AI doesn't do good jobs. Like it's not the most efficient way. Well, instead, what we do is we convert a piece of information into a string of numbers. Now, once they're a string of numbers, that resembles that piece of data. So if imagine in our database, we've got tons of these converted embeddings is what we call them. Now you can compare two different data sources, which are converted to embeddings, and you can actually think of it like they're coordinates on a map. So the closer that they are, and they're naturally closer if they're the same topics, like if two involve Next.js, the same tech stack and so forth, those two vector embeddings will be closer on the map, and that will give us a percentage score called a similarity. And basically that will determine, okay, how similar or how useful that job is. This is exactly how Netflix works, all of these companies, and how they can determine this is what the person wants to watch next, okay? So we basically need to make sure that we have vector embeddings and similarity matching in the mix, okay? Quantumverse goes, is this live? 100%, this is live, okay? So in this case now, you see it didn't have vector embedding. So now we've added that in. So we've got the vector embedding. So you see here, like profiles. Also get embedding from headline, summary, and skills and desired rows. So again, an embedding can be from any data that you wish. So the more information inside of an embedding, the more useful the embedding is at resembling the object that it's trying to reference, okay? So we're happy with that. Let's start that build. And in fact, what we could do is build this in parallel. So I'm gonna build that one in parallel and kick it off. Right now, what does that mean? It means that there's a bunch of to-dos here. Any jobs that it can do in parallel, it's going to go ahead and do that. Now, be aware, if you do this, of course, you're going to run through your build a bit quicker because you see I'm spinning up sub-agents, right? This plan is one coherent, mostly sequential pipeline. So I run it as a single background build agent. So in this case, there's not much it can really do in parallel. So it's going to go ahead and basically do it with one sub-agent, which is absolutely fine, okay? So Quantum says, it's recovery. It's been a while. You have been a good part of my career when I was starting. Oh, I appreciate that, dude. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Hopefully we help you out when it comes to the AI chapter for you. Right? It says the build agent is running in the background. It says executing the full plan, end-to-end, installing Convex, provisioning the dev deployment, writing the schema, and so forth. Now, I want to showcase something to you guys. If we go over to convex.dev and we go to login. So let's log into our Convex account. Now, I've already authenticated my CLI. So I've already installed the CLI. You can do that very simply. And then I'm going to go ahead and log into my account. I believe it's my personal account. I always get this part wrong. It's either one of the two. In this case, Passion Brain just asked me a question. I'll answer that in a moment. Where's the project? I think it would be in Nimbus. Let's see. Once it creates it for us, it will go ahead and do it. Right. So once it's gone ahead and created it for us, we can do that. So AI packages, man. PM approve. So I need to run that. It's a bit annoying that that happens, but it's fine. So it's going to start doing this, like provision new Convex dev deployment, and then it's basically figuring out how it can use this inside. So it found the available teams and so forth. So let that do its thing. So what kind of business model for this? Not registered users also can use chat, burning dozens of tokens. So no, in this case, only registered users. Remember, the reason that we set up the channels was to make sure that only Clerk-authenticated users are able to access the chat. So that's the first thing. So we're not actually letting everyone use it, okay? Right now, yes, a free user can use the chat. So in that case, if you want to gate it for paid users, we're going to add that afterwards. And then Clerk Billing allows us to do that so simple and easy, okay? So Quantumverse says, I'm kind of lost. I'm arriving in the middle of everything. Will it be recorded later? Absolutely. The whole thing is recorded every time. So you can feel free to watch through. And of course, when we post a replay, which is directly after, we'll have timestamps within an hour. So you'll be able to skip through to the points that you want. Okay. So in this case, I found that multiple teams exist. I need to discover the team slugs. It's basically going ahead and finding my team and checking which one to go ahead and create the thing for. So in this case, give this a second, let it do its thing. And my only caveat with Fable 5 is it's good, don't get me wrong, but it does take long. So if it's a trade-off, like don't get me wrong, it's great, but it will take much more caution in getting something done, which is why you tend to leave it running in the background, and it tends to do its thing, okay? But it's way more successful than the others, okay? So in this case, it created a dashboard. So it actually created our project. Let's have a look. So you can see, like, career AI agent demo. And this is why CLIs are so important, guys. Okay, so I've just created that, or the agent created it, and you can see we've not done a single thing here yet, right? If I go to data, we can see no tables at the moment. So the moment it starts creating, so let's make this a bit bigger right now so we can look at it. And you can see, look, I'm in our primary agent. I'm in the sub agent. Okay. Now we can see setting the gateway development key. So it's gone ahead and set the keys for us. And then the main thing is it runs Convex. So the one thing you need to understand is when you have Convex as a backend, in order to run it, you run pm convex dev, okay, alongside your next dev. But what you can do is you can actually add a concurrent script inside of your package JSON, which makes it run both in parallel, which is a nice little hack, right? So we're going to do that afterwards to make life a little bit easier. And that typically will look something like this. So inside of package JSON, you see here, dev all is typically how I like to do it. And you see how it runs concurrently. It runs next, and it runs next and convex, sorry, and then it runs pm dev, pm convex, and you can pick colors for each of them as they're appearing in the terminal. I'll show you that in a sec. Okay. Now in the schema, let's have a look at what it's actually doing. So this is what it's basically adding now. So if I go over to, let's go ahead and close this out. Let's make it very simple so we can see everything that's going on. Okay, so let's go over to our schema.convex and you can see loads of stuff is being added in. Employment type validator, seniority validator. These are basically just checks, right? But the schema is how our tables look. So it's create a users table, it's create a profile table. So this is how it's basically defines as a schema, and this is all type checked. So basically, if every time we try and interact with the query or mutation through our table, so we interact with our database, it's through type safe. This is one reason why I love Convex. Okay, and you see we have foreign key identifiers. So in this case, the user ID is linking to the users table and so forth. We have experience, this is an array and so forth. And again, you could really have an entirely separate experience table if you wanted for that, but in this case, it's fine for now. And then you've got job listings and so forth. So it's created all of this. And basically the difference in Convex is that the second you hit save, we will see these tables appear here. Okay, so once it's gone ahead and actually hit save or it runs, this will actually appear inside of our Convex database. And then it's creating the seed file. So it's creating demo candidate with 20 job listings. Okay, and this is one of the biggest hacks that I often don't see talked about enough. One of the huge benefits when you're coding with AI is you can seed data like you never could before. Yes, there was packages like faker.js, but you'd have to write scripts and all this kind of stuff yourself. One of the ultimate hacks, say to it, seed data into my development database and basically populate it. And now you can have basically your entire database populated with a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of different, dummy data points, okay? Now I'm setting up the embeddings model with a helper function. The AI gateway will use the environment variable from Convex's deploy settings, so no explicit API key is needed. Okay. So the embeddings backfill. So it's created the seed for the data, and then we need to basically go through all of the entries and do something called a backfill to generate the embedding. Remember, an embedding is just if we have an object here which resembles Sonny. So this has all of Sonny's details, his work experience and everything, and we create an embedding of that. All I'm doing is I'm turning this massive object into a series of numbers, which is basically like a coordinate on a map. And AI is really good at understanding similarities between these coordinates. Okay, so instead of checking objects which are complex, vector embeddings, AI can understand a lot easier. Okay, so now we basically do a backfill whereby it goes through all of the old entries, and it will basically go ahead and embed those. Okay, so profile embedding and so forth. Now we can see it actually do this here. So let's do the following. Where is it? So we've got embed text, embed many from Vercel AI. So this is whenever you see from the AI package, it's basically Vercel AI. We've got embed many, and you can see that model, embedding model, OpenAI, text embedding 3 small. Right, so this is using the Vercel AI Gateway, but you can basically have, by the way, the embedding cost is extremely cheap. So it's not expensive to convert something to an embedding, okay? Convex says, sorry, I have kind of a problem sometimes with the videos. Is there a way we can always get the paste to prompt so it would be better instead of us pausing, copy, just a suggestion? A little bit tricky, but what I do is I give you the entire code base, because the point of the live streams is to showcase how, remember, the prompt doesn't have to be perfectly written the same way every time. You can get to the same output. The main point here is understand what the goal is, and then you can basically write that prompt in 100 different ways. Okay, so as long as what I'd recommend is instead of copying prompt for prompt, because there's no different to copying line by line of my code, is you're better off going ahead and understanding what should I be prompting for. Okay, like what's my objective here? I shouldn't just copy a prompt, not understand what I'm doing. I should be instead understanding, okay, at this point I need to add the Convex CLI so I can create a Convex database. So that way I can have dummy data populated, and then I can create vector embeddings for the dummy data. So that way I can start making tools from my AI agent, go ahead and pull that information. That's exactly what you need to know, right? You can write that in a million different prompt ways, okay? So that's why I don't recommend just giving prompts like word for word, because it's not how AI development works. It's not going to be the way that I'd recommend it, okay? So now if we go over here, you can see we've got a bunch of different things. Now, the way that we typically write convex functions is, or queries and mutations, is we have the table.ts. So the table name.ts, and then we have all of the different queries and mutations inside of it. So for example, when we try to access our jobs, we create a list query, which is basically a query, meaning we get information, mutation, meaning we change information. So in this case, query, we can go in, we pass in arguments, and this will return basically a list of items. So in this case, the handler is where it actually executes. You don't always need the return block. It can also infer this, right? AI just loves to do that. But in this case, the handler is where the actual stuff happens. In this case, context of database, it basically goes in, it queries job listings table, it goes ahead and uses the index by status, and it finds all of the open status job listings. And then it orders them descending, and it basically returns a paginated option. And this is awesome. This returns it as a paginated option list, which means that you can basically have easy pagination afterwards, right? So little hacks that you can do instead of having it on the front end, getting everything all at once, okay? Strong results, full stack tops at 81%, while iOS and Embed. So now it's actually found, look, it actually ran the vector embedding against all of the jobs that were done, and it found that the dummy user profile had a full stack match closely to their profile with 81%, whereas they were weaker with iOS development, and embedded development was 40% at the bottom. So that's pretty cool, right? And you can see here, like, it actually ran an example of this, and we can see like 81%, 78%, 75, 70, and 66%, okay? So really, really cool stuff. Now, what you can see is it's running the project. So type check, meaning it's basically checking if there's any errors. Let me go ahead and restart the music. I'm going to use Jay's playlist for a bit. Okay. And then it's going to go ahead. And if we see the ESLint plugin is actually quite handy. This is just so it can catch out a couple of the issues earlier on. So this is what all it's doing here. You can feel free to add that one in. Sometimes AI doesn't always add in, so it's good to know. And now it's just doing a little check around the code before it runs it. And when it runs it, you can see, look, we're going to have the following. So if I go to profiles here, I should have one profile. Okay, so let this load. I think it's deploying. That's why it's a little bit slow. So if we go back over here, I have one profile, and you can see that this person has a degree, computer science, University of Manchester. You can see experience. They've got a couple of jobs. So they worked at Orbit and Pixelworks. The headline, they worked in London. The summary, skills, and everything else. And that is linked to the user ID over here. And what we can do is you can see that that is a referential link. So if we click through, we can actually go into that user, like copy, go to reference. So now I go to the user, and there's filtering by that. So we can go ahead and we can just get rid of that fit filters because we only have one user in our test data. And now you can see that this user is Alex Riviera, right? And then that person has basically a resume attached to them, a profile attached to them. And then the main thing is the job listings, okay? So job listings here are basically all the different listings that we have. So basically these are all gonna have different, employment types and blah, blah, blah. The main thing I want you to focus on is vector embeddings for them. So if we see over here, the embedding. So you see how an embedding looks? Like that to us looks like craziness, right? But to an AI, that is way more easier to read in terms of similarity checking. Okay, so what this has done is effectively took a couple of rows that we predefined. Remember, it was like the headline, the description, a few of these things, basically create a vector embedding. And then what we're doing is we're matching this vector embedding against the user's vector embedding, or I believe it's the profile of the user's vector embedding. So yeah, the profile. So in this case, you see this vector embedding. So now we effectively have this massive coordinates, 2 coordinates, and we're basically checking. I love that. Someone goes, Jay has a better playlist than Sonny. Got smoke, but yeah, it's true. Jay's got a good playlist. All right. So at this point now, I also want to make it clear that if we go to functions, every single one of those query and mutations got deployed as a cloud function, which is really, really cool. These one with locks are known as internal functions, so they're not publicly available. Okay, so a little bit of extra kind of notes to know. Now, let's see what this does next. So let's go over here. What's the downside to not having the vector embedding? So if you didn't have a vector embedding, comparing a person's object versus, let's say, for example, even 5 different objects, it's going to burn through tokens like crazy, because what you're doing is you're asking it to do reasoning against 5 objects, which, by the way, if you want to put this into scale, if I convert myself into a vector embedding, so a bunch of information about me into a vector embedding, I can compare me against 10,000 jobs if they're all vector embeddings, and it'll be super efficient because you're just doing a simple math similarity check. And all that's doing is returning a bunch of similarity scores behind me. And then I can just basically have the top ones basically be shown to me. If I do the same thing with 10,000 records, imagine if AI had to go through every object and basically reason, well, okay, is this similar? I'm going to make a reason why. I'm going to start recording why this one is similar. Next one, I'm going to reason why. Your AI bill would be through the roof before you know it. So vector embeddings are a must if you're going to do similarity checking. Okay, never ever assume that you can do reasoning. If you want to do, that's like Netflix. Imagine you had an AI model kick off every time that you wanted to go ahead and do see what films you liked. Imagine how much the bill would rack up for something like Netflix. They're using vector embeddings. Okay, so now it's done, and we can see like matches list for user, and then we've got the no omit and so forth. Okay, so this is perfect, right? So find similar jobs for the demo user, return 18 results. The 3 closed listings correctly excluded by vector filter with the intended ranking. Okay, so that's perfect, right? So at this point, we can do 2 things. We can push this. So I'm going to see my changes. I'm going to commit this, okay? And then what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and you see I'm just going to commit, and it's basically just going to pop a message in. Oh, but if we go back over here, I forgot, remember, we're in a sub agent. So the build completed, the natural next step whenever it is wiring the Eve tools. So I forgot about that, by the way. So that agent finished previously. Did it commit or not? Let's have a look. So it didn't commit yet, okay? So I can commit now, or rather than doing it through the agent, sometimes honestly it's just easier to commit here. So I'm going to be lazy here and get it to auto-generate a message. And if you really want a good message, don't do it this way. Do it the actual way through an agent, yeah? But in this case, I'm just going to commit that. I'm syncing it, like add Convex functions. So basically, this is the entire Convex backend, right? That's basically what this is doing. Now, we've got a checkpoint. So now the next step is our sub agent was done. The natural next step is wiring Eve agent tools to these Convex functions so that chat agent can use them, okay? So let's say, let's get out of multitask mode. Let's say, perfect, let's wire up the exact tools that you mentioned, search job and find matches. And also, when it returns the results, ideally, I would like to display them as nice looking cards and widgets in the interface. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So search jobs and find matches. So we're going to create two tools. Now remember, in order to do this, let's go and check that out. So if we go over to our agent, so what do we expect to happen here? We expect 2 tools are going to get added. Not get weather, this one sucks, right? Search jobs and find matches. Okay, so 2 tools are going to get added here. Okay, now in addition, we should also understand that, okay, yes, we've got clerk authentication. However, it would also benefit us to have like a get function, like get user ID or fetch user, right? So in this case, we're also going to have to do that, but it will probably figure that on its own, right? So like get demo clerk user ID. In this case, it's just doing user demo candidate, but I can show you how you can link the 2 in the test. Okay. Now, Passion Fruit said, looks like you also need cascade deletion approach when someone deletes CV or a user is deleted. Yes. So if you guys don't understand what he said, basically a cascade means that, let's say, for example, the user deleted their account, right? All of their resumes and their job applications effectively, depending on how you set your app up, but they should also delete as well, right? Unless you want to have it so maybe the application stayed, but the profile got deleted. You can define rules, and that's what a cascade is called, okay? So that's typically where you would do that. Now, it's basically handling, look at this. Now let me check what the tools context session auth exposes. So find matches can identify the signed in clerk user, okay? So context session auth, and it's basically finding out that, okay, is this giving me the user or not? And if it does, we can use that inside of the call. Okay. So I wire up the two Eve calls to Convex and add rich card rendering in the chat. First, let me look at the Convex functions and the build agents created and how Eve exposes tool results to the front end. Okay. And now what's really cool is that while this is happening, guys, we can actually go ahead and gate in a separate branch if we wanted to. Okay. So I'm going to do Command B. And now you can see these are our previous branches. I'm just going to close those ones. Right. So I've got my one agent branch running. I'm going to close the previous branches here. And now we've got a new agent that I'm going to spin up. Now, remember, I don't want to have, so at this point, I don't know why it's glitching out, it's weird, right? I do not want to have another agent working on main. So you see, this is on main right now. So I have active changes happening on main. So you're going to be very careful. If I do another agent on main now, they're going to clash because they might change the same file. And then you're going to have each agent be like, whoa, the previous file just changed. They don't understand that there's two of them working if it's two separate chats. So what you want to do here is you want to make sure you're in a work tree. So what this does is it takes the current committed version of main, which is the last committed state, which is why I committed the changes, and it will pull from that point. But you can see like it's already got changes being pulled in, okay? So we're going to create a work tree now from here, and we're going to go ahead and say the following, okay? We need to create a landing page, which is basically a demo landing page, and then using Clerk Billing and the Clerk CLI, I want you to set up a pro plan, which effectively allows the user to chat to the AI agent. Make sure you use the Clerk has function when doing this. Okay. So I always say the has function because it's really, really nice function that Clerk has. But effectively what we're saying here is we need to use Clerk Billing and we need to make use of the Clerk CLI. Right, the Clerk CLI allows our agent to act on our behalf and do a bunch of stuff like configure pricing plans, configure all of the pro plans, everything else in the mix. Right, make sure you use the Clerk has function when doing this. Okay, so at this point we're going to say, and one more thing I like to add in, when checking if the user is a pro member or not, only use Clerk Billing SDK methods. Okay, so I really like to be explicit with it, and for this one we're going to stick that into Fable. So let's do Fable and go ahead and fire that one off in plan mode. Okay. And again, notice how this is in a work tree. So you see what this is? This is create a copy in a separate work tree. And that's basically on our computer. That's effectively, let me see if it shows here. So there'll be a directory where this will be in our computer. And basically we can actually go to the entire code base and see that. Okay. So, and you can see that it's using Composer 2.5, which I love when it does this. Cursor does this really well. So to explore the entire app, rather than using Fable 5, it's using Composer 2.5. And this is one of the ultimate hacks when you're using Cursor. Look how fast Composer 2.5 is exploring. So for me, personally, that's a game changer. Now heading back over to our first branch. Now we've got two agents working in parallel, right? Hey, we got Nair in the house. I see you. Yo, what's up, Papa fam? Vercel, sorry to take you off course. What is the benefit of getting a channel membership subscription? Oh, right now it's just a sick badge. I'll be honest, but eventually we want to have some kind of benefit. But it's just a loyalty badge to support the channel. That's the truth. Okay. We previously tried having some like test content that was shouted over there, but we honestly it's more about being in the Papa fam. The main joining us is in the community side of things over at papareact.com. Okay. So let's have a look. So created session exercise in both tools. So now it's creating the tool results as well as upgrading the agent chat. Now I want you to pay attention to this part, Eve message part. So if we look over at the agent chat, have a look, right? Now remember, I want to highlight one thing over and over again. This is the main branch, okay? So if we look over here in source control now, what you'll notice is we have a different looking view here. So if I open up up here, you can see, look, I have two repos up here. I have the main and I have this is called a work tree. So notice how each one has different changes inside of it. Okay. So just because at a certain point there was a commit that happened. So if we go to the graph here, you can see, look, they have the same commits, right? So each one can have different changes now and they're not going to clash. The way that it works is main is obviously our main branch. Once this one is done, we make a pull request into main. Okay, so that's effectively how it works. And that way we can have 100 agents working in parallel without crashing. Right, now over here, we've got a plan that's been proposed. So Command B to hide that. So you can see the landing page and Clerk Billing Pro plan. So chat UI agent chat renders directly on /. There's no marketing page. Clerk is wired. So we're going to say clerk channels. So we can actually change that. We can make the agent chat appear in a different screen. Per the Clerk CLI and Clerk billing skills, it's going to basically enable billing for the user, port our configuration, and then basically create a pro plan. And I'll show you how this is all done, which is really, really awesome. So this is a B2C billing plan on Clerk. Attach a feature slug AI chat. So this is basically how we can have per feature per plan. And then we're going to use dev. That's perfect. Oops, what have I done? Yeah. And then step 2, landing page and routing. So rewrite the page as a public demo landing page. And then we're going to have a /chat for signed in users. That's better. Yeah. New chat page, a server component that hosts the moved chat UI and enforces the pro gate. Right. That's much better. Okay. Chat. And then this is how we actually gate. So this has function, or actually auth, comes from the Clerk SDK. Okay, so we destruct the object to get the has function out of it, and then we say if the user doesn't have, so has basically plan pro, then we redirect them to pricing. So we're basically saying you can go and upgrade, right? You can do it this way, or you can do it with a show component as well. Okay, so I'm also going to mention that you can also use the show component if needed. Okay. So show component if needed. Okay, so there's also this one. So you can choose, pick and choose, and I'll show you what both of those are. So I'm just going to go ahead and propose that as well, because it's a handy thing to know. Now I'll show you guys what that is. Clerk Billing SDK. If we have a look at this, so right now if I go over to Clerk Billing, you can see over here, like billing for B2C. And this means like business to consumer. So basically as if I'm a user on LinkedIn, right? That's a business to consumer setup. If it's a business paying for a business organization account on LinkedIn, that is B2B. That's different, okay? Because B2B, basically, the way you can tell quickly what is the difference between B2C and B2B, B2C means there's one person buying that membership. B2B means that it's an organization with like 10 members, for example, and then they have one membership and all people get access to it. And then there's different roles in that organization. So that's the difference between that organization versus consumer, right? So enable billing, payment gateway. So this bit is not what I'm interested in. The gating is the one. So control access with features and plans. We have the has, which is basically a has method. You can check basically if someone's on a plan or if they have access to a feature like the AI_chat approach. And then we also have the show method, which I really like as well. That's another example, can be used to protect content or even entire routes by checking if the user has been granted a specific type. So you can basically wrap entire children, in this case, so children components, with show when plan bronze or even logged in, logged out with a fallback component if it doesn't meet it. And this is really handy for things like upgrade pop-ups, right? So if it says, well, you need to upgrade and so forth. Okay. So it said good addition, great stuff, blah, blah, blah. It's going to add that in now, right? So cool stuff. So we're going to build that. So now that agent, we leave it, it's building it. Let's go check out our starter agent for the one. Yeah. Let's go check out this one, which was our main agent. So now it's created search jobs, find matches, Convex, and also updated the instructions MD. And on the UI side, it introduced tool results card as well as agent chat. So agent chat now renders tool parts by state, a friendly posting label while a tool runs. 2 environment variables fixed along the way. The Eve dev cache had a stale snapshot after the earlier server was killed and so forth. Okay, so let's have a look at this now. I want to show you if we go to and you can see which branch you're viewing over here. So I'm on the main branch. Let's go to agent chat, which we're on. Eve message part. So tool part is basically, if we have a look, if we show you over here. So when you map through messages from an AI chat, basically, this is the way that you just need to understand it, right? Messages get streamed back in chunks. So like when you talk to an AI agent, it's streaming messages back. You don't have to wait the entire thing before it comes back. It basically will go ahead and, I don't understand what Jay mentioned, but basically it'll come back in like little chunks. So that way we can see an update rather than waiting for ages between chat parts, right? Now, while that happens, each part that comes back, each chunk can actually have a type connected to it, okay? So in some cases, we basically want to analyze the type. So here, for example, if the type of that text, if the type of the part or the chunk was type text, we can render it out as text, okay? But if the chunk that came back was something like a dynamic tool, then we can render out widgets. And this is how we can stream in widgets as it comes back, right? So really, really quite a powerful thing to know about, okay? So let's let that do its thing in a minute. But what was I going to show you? So we have the different tools. So search job, and that was it. Yeah. So if we go over to our tools, we can see that search jobs. So in this case, Convex client query API job search, and basically it's returning the actual search. Now, how does it know who the user is? Right. So in this case, we go to find matches. Let's see over here, get Convex client, resolve candidate. So search jobs is public. You don't need to know who the user is to search jobs, but find matches, we need to know who the user is. So in this case, it's created a helper function called clerk user ID equals await resolve candidate clerk ID. So if we click into this, this is a function which basically gets the call out, the auth. So this includes the user's authenticated state in the request. And then basically here we're checking if the principal type is user and the call out authenticator is clerk. Remember, this was all set up through Vercel Eve. Then we're going to basically get the user's profile. So if they came through the channel, which was clerk, which is what we're checking here, right? Call it principal type and call it authenticator. And remember, this was actually inside of Eve. So you can see here, look, principal to ID and principal type, right? And the authenticator being clerk. Then we're going to say, yep, they came through the web UI. So in this case, they were going to check for the profile here. If the profile exists, we're going to return the caller principal ID because that's their user ID, right? Otherwise, we're going to return a demo user ID, right? Because it's basically made a demo out of it as well. And then once that comes back, it's going to use a Convex action and it's going to find similar jobs. And this is where we compare two vector embeddings, okay? So in this case, look, get profile with embedding. And then basically we're going to check if the profile is an embedding. And then you see, look, context.vector search. So in this case, what it's doing is we basically are doing a vector search. And this is why I love Convex, because they have a first-class vector searching function inside. So what you do is inside of your action, we have context.vector search. Job listing is the table. By embedding is the search index, which I'll show you in a second. And then we have the vector that we want to search against. The limit being how many basically matches do we want to have. And then we have the filter. We're checking for all of the open job listings. So if I go to the schema now, so if I open up schema.ts, you guys can see in job listings. So over here, schema, the embedding is here. But you can see what we did is we added in a vector index. So indexes are basically like, rather than think of an index being like where we're preparing our database to say, I'm going to use that field to search for that thing. So basically create a shortcut to get the results really quick. That's basically what an index is, right? So by status, so by adding an index, it basically prepares the lookup to be way faster, okay? Now, we also do this with vector indexing. So we're going to make sure that we have a by embedding field, and this is going to help us out. And typically we have dimensions to a vector, right? The more dimensions, the more depth, but also the more expensive to calculate the embedding, as well as the more longer it might take to do that, right? But typically in studies, 1536 has been pretty decent for getting a similarity score, okay? So cool. And then we add the filter fields, which you just saw, okay? So now that that's done, I want to check something. So I'm logged in at this point. I don't know if this is actually going to find any matches here because we don't actually have my user doesn't even have a profile at this point. So right now the user doesn't actually have a profile. So that's the interesting part. So we're gonna have to dummy something here. So what I'm gonna do is, in order to basically check against my user who is logged in right now, I'm gonna go to my Vercel, my Clerk account. I'm gonna go to my user and I'm gonna say, with this user ID, I want you to seed a bunch of data, okay? So seed a bunch of data for the following user who is my user, as I'm going to be testing it with my account. Okay. And we'll just say, sorry, the user ID is this one. So you say user ID, boom. So Clerk user ID, and then basically say, add a bunch of information about my user. And yeah, we're going to test the chat. Okay. So Passion Brain says, does this SaaS will also have job alerts resend? So again, we're not focusing on the app and the features of an app because we've done it in a million different builds. You could add in resend super easily, yeah, 100%. The main focus here is we're focusing on how you can add AI in a valuable way, okay? So that way you can basically build out whichever features you want. Adding resend is literally, you could do a couple of prompts, you'll be there. Right, really, really quite easy. The main thing is that plus AI calculate in real time for user requests. So you could have it. So for example, every week, it would basically go ahead and have it's a very good question. So you could have it. So at the end of every week, so a schedule. Remember with Vercel Eve, we can actually have schedules. So we could actually create a schedule where every single week, I want this workflow. So Vercel Eve to wake up, kick off, and I want it to basically calculate similarity scores for this user, for the job searching, and I want it to email them through resend to basically say, hey, here's your weekly digest of jobs that we think you're great for, right? And what we could do is even filter out those based on if I've already applied to certain ones. So that way it only shows me ones where I haven't applied to already. You see, it's pretty damn powerful, right? And that's pretty awesome. Literally everything I just said, if you copied that and put in a prompt, you could literally get that entire feature done. And of course, prior to doing that, my ultimate advice would be install the resend plugin and the MCP. And if they have a CLI, set it up, authenticate your agent so it can use it. So that way it can do everything from end to end. Okay. So let's have a look at what's going on here. So in this case, it seeded some data for me. Let's go over to check out the landing page and how that's going. So in this case, we can have a look. And this one is also pretty well on its way. So back over to Vercel Eve. This is on our main branch. So it done it. So it went ahead and created my account. And if we look inside of Convex, so inside of here, we can actually see in the data, we should have my account now. So Sonny Sanga, there we go. That's me. We've got my resume, which should be attached. Sonny Sanga, title, linking to my user ID. And then my profile is also linked as well. So look, this is also linked to me. And there's a vector embedding of me, React, Next.js. Oh, look at that. It's pretty cool, actually. He actually knew what I had been doing based on my previous things that I talked about. Years of experience is low. It should be 15. That's actually the correct answer. Will it automatically apply for the jobs, or will it take you to the page to apply? Again, whatever you want, you can customize that. So very good question. I'll show you. We can even customize that right now. Okay. So once I show you how it works, you'll understand, okay, I could do whatever I want at that point, right? So let's go to the chat again. Let's refresh. And now let's see something. So let's say find suitable jobs that match me. Okay. So find suitable jobs that match me. And let's see if it does any. Look, matching jobs to your profile. Whoa, look at that's sick, right? So it literally created cards and it found a bunch of jobs that match to me. 77%, 75, 70%, 69%, 64%, and so forth, right? This is because we're not rendering markdown, right? So in this case, this would just be basically support markdown. So we can easily upgrade this one. So what I can actually do, very quick hack, I can just screenshot this. I can go over here and I can say support markdown, done. And I'll come back with markdown. And then in this case, we can see that it now shows me my options. Okay. Now, very good question from Quantum Verse. He said, will it automatically apply for the jobs, or will it take you to the page to apply? Now, see these cards. Let's have a look at where these are rendered out, and then it will make sense what you can do with it. So this is all inside of agent chat. So agent chat component. So if we go over to the actual, you see like part.state. Okay. So remember, if it's a dynamic tool, we render tool part. Okay. Now, if we look at tool part, we can go further in part.state, output available, and then we can check for the tool that was actually used. So in this case, if it was search jobs or if it was find matches. So in this case, search jobs returns job search results. And that is what this list is. Okay. So in this case, if there no jobs came back, it would say it. Otherwise, this right here is exactly what you're seeing here. So job meta is basically, if I was to get rid of this, we should go ahead and get rid of it. Let me see, where is it? Skill chip is basically the one here, but job description preview. So it would actually be, let me just double check job search results, job meta is the badge. You see like remote. So where is it? Yeah. So remote job location. So remote EU, US, EU, Europe. And just to prove it to you, we can say, for example, text, red 500. Okay, I don't know if this is actually, oh, this is not probably hot reloading. So 1.5. So right now, if I do BG, for example, amber, oh yeah, so you can see it is hot reloading, yeah? So in this case, I can go ahead and change that, right? So you can see that is literally where it's happening. So all you would need to do is basically, for the result, you could change this to a link. So you could literally make this a link, and then you could basically go ahead and say, that should go to, prime example, of the job ID, okay? Now, if I was to do that, in this case, right, let's go down here. Sorry, I need to change this to a link. Now, look how it changes into, well, there actually isn't a click here. So if I clicked it though, you'll see I go to the, one second, force job ID, this should be clickable firstly. So grid, more columns, let's just do, maybe it's a refresh. I don't know if it's going to hot reload that in, but it's being a bit weird with the hot reloading. But what I'd recommend you do here is you could do target blank. So that way it opens up a new one. But let's just go ahead and do that again. So say find suitable jobs for me. Okay. Yes, there is also a voice agent. That's a very good idea as well, right? So now this is not clickable. Let me have a look why. So very, very simple change. I'm just missing something stupid here. So last name. We'll change this in a second, okay? But what I would basically, you'd go ahead and just change the outer layer to this. But I'll show you in a moment how we can do that, right? I'll come back to it in a sec. But you see the point. You just change it to a link, and then that could be a clickable link to wherever you want, right? Or you could have an apply button saying, or apply for me, and it will write a resume letter, whatever you want to do, okay? So now you can see we also applied markdown. So now we no longer see those squiggly messes. We see this instead. Perfect, right? Find super jobs for me or suitable jobs. And then let's say we wanted to have a apply for me button. So apply for me, let's go ahead and say, if I click this button, it will show a pop-up that writes a custom cover letter for me that will then have basically a apply button. That would be really cool, okay? So let's go ahead and do something like that now. So let's enhance this. So every job search card that comes back to us, we're gonna check if I've already applied, it will show I've already applied. Otherwise, I wanna see a apply for this job button that basically renders a ShadCN pop-up, and that pop-up will go ahead and basically write a automatic cover letter for me and basically have a input box where I can change the cover letter if I need to, and then a submit. And this will basically submit on my behalf for that application. So you see what I'm basically doing here, yeah? So let's go ahead and trigger that one off. So now what I'm asking for is a button here. And basically, if I haven't already, it will click it, boom, pop up a nice little modal pop up. And then I want to have basically an AI. And again, this is just going to be as simple as it sounds. So we can, if I go here, I'm going to say, create a new write cover letter tool that this will utilize when doing this. Okay. So basically we can actually go ahead and have it use Vercel Eve to actually handle that part too. Okay. So you can see things are really starting to take off. If we do Command B now, go to the demo landing page, just see how far this one got. So test user created. So it was testing it on its own here. So this is pretty cool. It's asking for email verification code. Since the email uses Clerk test, Clerk fixed code works. This is amazing. So what this is actually doing, guys, is this is actually going ahead and testing out the entire flow of the app. And you can see, look at this, it's actually showing, it's running through the entire app right now. And it even created a test user. Now, if you didn't know, Clerk allow you to do automated testing. So end-to-end testing is basically where we have a robot test the app. And one thing that we typically think about is, okay, but how can a robot log into my app when they're testing? Okay, so with Clerk, you can actually have Clerk plus test accounts. Okay, so testing with Clerk, and I highly recommend everyone reads this and checks it out. But basically what you can do is if you go ahead and add in simply the agent tasks guide, this is a really good one as well. Testing tokens is another one. I think it's agent tasks here. You can do this one, agent task, create agent task, user playwright. This is one thing. No, it wasn't this one. You basically create a user, as long as it's got plus Clerk test at the end of it, it will basically be registered in dev sessions as a test account, right? So test email on phones, I believe it was set up test mode, yeah, here. Any email with the plus Clerk test sub address in a test email address. For example, any of these will basically, when they get asked for verification codes, 424242 will get past it, right? So this is why I highly recommend, and the same with number flows, right? So if you're going to test number flows and so forth, and this way you can have a test account that your basically AI agent can run through and test it all. Okay, so this literally did the entire flow for us, by the way. So look at that. It actually went through. The prorogate worked. Signed in free user requesting chat gets redirected to pricing. And then it found that it was basically hitting the checkout draw. And then it actually went through and continued with the payment for the test payment. And then it got redirected. And now it's checking if it is working. Everything works end to end. Final screenshot of the working pro chat. And I really want to see here, is it going to show me the final screenshot of this? Because that is actually really, really clean what it just did. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's see captured screenshot. I wonder if it will show me that. And this, it usually does actually show me some stuff. But I'm curious if why it's not actually showing me this time. So, and what it would have also done is copy the environment variables over. So it would have handled all these things for us. Can you say, can you show me the images or the screenshots? I'm wondering if it can do that, because it can. It's done it before. Agents on Cursor are actually really awesome. They got really nice test flow. I find often, I have quite good success with that when I use Cursor for testing. It does burn through the tokens quicker, but look at this, guys. Look, this is the actual test. That is awesome, man. Look at that. So firstly, it went to the page, yeah, and then basically it tried to go to the chat. This is after they're a pro subscriber. That's amazing. Between these two states, I also verified the gate itself, and basically it was able to do that entire test flow itself, which is pretty damn awesome, okay? So now we've got the test gates in. So this one is pretty much ready for a PR, okay? So remember, this is on a work tree, which means it's not on the main branch. So what we want to do here is I just say create a PR, okay? Create a PR, pull request. So now I want to create a PR, so that will now basically be ready to merge afterwards. Now in the backend, or the other chat, let's go see how that's going. Writing cover letter function. So in this case, it created a new tool inside of Eve for writing a cover letter. Okay. And then it's initializing shadcn. It's setting up shadcn in it. So basically it's going to go ahead and add shadcn to our project. All right. If you don't know what shadcn, amazing design library, right? And in this case, it was to do something else. Okay. So we'll fix that one. Let's come back over here. Let that do its thing. Just initializing it. Sometimes I find that it will get caught here because it basically just needs to have the default settings as part of the argument. But you'll see here that agents tend to time out after a certain point. Okay. But this will be really nice. So it's actually quite close to getting it done. So in the meantime, while that's happening, that'll time out on its own. You can see that this will create a PR. So it's going to go ahead, commit on this branch to a PR, and I want to show you exactly how this looks inside of the editor view, because this is a very good teaching moment. So we can see, oh, it actually deleted my old, the other tree because it probably created the PR. So create pull request by GitHub. So it's creating our pull request, and you can see here, PR created. I split the work into 2 commits, right? So I add create agent tools and then gate agent chat behind Clerk Pro Billing with the landing page. And now let's go and check that one out, okay? So let's go ahead and have a look at this right here. And then we can actually, what am I doing? Click this one. And one thing I like about Cursor is you can actually review a PR inside of here. Okay. So I can either look at it here, right? So I can either come in and do this. So basically copy URL, or if I was to go look at this inside of GitHub, it would look like this. So this is a pull request. Okay. So this is basically saying, I want to merge this into main. Okay. Now, of course, when we merge this in, there's going to be a clash because, well, naturally, I don't know, there's going to be a clash because the thing is, it needs to change a couple of bits. It might do it like really nicely, but we're going to effectively shift a few things. So no, it will definitely clash when we do it because we want to add a few different routing options in. Okay. So you can see all the different things that it's done here, but you can also review this inside of Cursor. Linear also do this as well, really nicely as well. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. Now, of course, here you can actually come in, leave comments, chat with it and go back and forth. But the point is that now from here, I can squash and merge to basically pull this into our code base. Squash and merge means, remember, it created 2 commits, right? So when you squash and merge, it basically will squash these 2 commits or 10 commits into one and basically creates like a super checkpoint. So that way you don't have like every single one. Some people prefer that. I prefer squash and merge. Merge is basically where you'll merge all of these commits in because it can get super messy if you have a million commits inside. Tends to be a case of like you use these granular commits when you make a PR and then you squash it down when you do a full merge in. So it really depends on how you want to work. Okay. That's more preference as well though. Okay. So now at this point, before we merge this in, I want to make sure that the other agent actually finishes its job. So retry shad cn in CI mode. Oh God's sake, this is annoying. It should just get past this quite easily. Let's do it. Shad cn try. It's just hung. So I do have a shad cn skill. I don't know why it's not using that. So use the shad cn CLI. So I think I already have it. So if we type in shad cn, you go to docs, you got MCP server, CLI, this is the one. Okay, and it, you can see over here, where is it by inject, no, installation, you can use CLI, use existing, but they have a very nice one that can just do it for you, or the MCP. The MCP is like the easiest way, like, see, thank Lord, and so forth. Oh, come on, get past it. CLI, MCP. Let's just like override it and just do it ourselves. Again, all this is doing is init. But we can just do this in 2 seconds as well. I just want to show you that it can do this, right? Mention initialize the MCP server with the command that updates the cursor config, so I could set that up instead of relying on the CLI, right? So in this case, fetching page, docs, MCP, they can go ahead and do that for itself. Okay. Now, needs a valid components, but the init commands hanging like they would be available to. Okay, so let me just do this quickly myself. So we're going to do Command J, and then over here, I'm just going to do a shad cn init. Okay, so over here, super easy installation. Let's do go into Next.js. We're already inside, so we can just do this. Okay, run shad cn, and we can do radix or base. Let's just do radix. Colors, again, you can pick, and you can actually do a really nice thing with the customization on the site. So they have, I forgot what it's called exactly, but where's it gone? Over here, they have if you type in new, this one. So you can basically customize it all, and then you get like a preset terminal command that gives you all your colors for your UI. So I'd recommend you do that when you do this for real. But now it's done. I can say, I did the init, continue, right? So sometimes literally, you see how AI is not always the most smartest with this stuff. So just get past it for it. Save yourself the tokens, just move on, okay? Now, while this is almost done, let's see. So the other one is, oh yeah, this is it. So it's done, then it's got the init results. It's already added in the components JSON. And I think it's gonna try and add the MCP in now before it carries on, but no, so you see that it's adding in the buttons and so forth. And then once it's added in these buttons, now we can see inside of our project, we should have these buttons. So if we go over here, oh, it's not this one. This is the wrong one. Here. Command B, we go over here. Oh yeah, sorry guys, it didn't close my old one. If you see here, this is the pull request. So you see how this is the main, and the pull request had those 2 commits ahead. And this is the main branch, and you can see how they're at different points. So we need to merge these 2 bits of work together. And this could happen if you have 10 agents running, whatever the case, right? So how do you merge that in together with each other? Let's go ahead and do it right now. So we'll do that after this is done. So it's also setting up the Convex client provider. So what that is basically when we basically are using any kind of, client component, it needs to be aware if I'm authenticated on Clerk, and also if we pass the authentication state through to Convex as well. So typically, it actually didn't do that in the beginning, which you should have done, but it's done it now anyway, right? Sonny, joining after a long, long time. You didn't age a day, man. Oh, I appreciate you. That's an awesome thing to say. Didn't age a day. The wonders of red light therapy. That's so nice. I love when people say that. Apply button. Thank you, dude. So at this point, let's go over here. Let's go ahead and show you. So where did it go? So let me pop it in. So okay. So this is still applying a few things, right? So all this is effectively doing is adding in that apply button, right? And then the apply button is going to go ahead and use the new write cover letter agent tool. So over here, we can see it's been created for us, right? Cover letter, here we have it. See, look, cover letters.generate, takes the user's ID, takes the job ID, and then you can see like candidate, run query, get the candidate for the cover letter, gives their entire profile, get the job for the cover letter. Now I have the job, basically the entire job information, I have the candidate. And then what we're doing is we're running an AI model to generate text, okay? And this is basically from AI. So it's going to be using the Vercel AI Gateway key that we had previously. You can choose the model. So in this case, the cover letter model is Anthropic Sonnet 5, okay? And then you can see here, all of this again, running through, this one is actually running, this is running as a Convex backend function, but it's actually running through the Vercel Eve layer, right? So in this case, write a concise, compelling cover letter, 220 to 300 words for the candidate below, applying to the job below, right? And then it gives it a bunch of rules. The candidate passes the information through, the job passes the information through, and then it returns back the cover letter text, the title, and the company, okay? And then basically what we do with that afterwards is inside of here, we get the result, we return that to the AI agent, right? And the AI agent is then responsible for how it returns. So in this case, the result, when you return like this, by the way, the really cool thing about this is your input schema is one thing. You then get a result back. So this will return cover letter, title, and company. Then basically we're just passing this back, but the AI is the thing that determines, okay, so Sonny just returned this information. How do I now present it forward to the user? And that's where it gets pretty cool, like, and quite powerful. And that's where we're going to have the pop-up come up and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let me do a little refresh here. We've also got this use client directive must be placed at the top. So I'm also going to just throw that in as well. So let's just throw that in, the error in, because that's cutting us off at the moment. And if we check our usage, I just want to do, I'm curious about one thing. So plan and usage, 76 API. So I went up like 20% here, but Cursor does burn through more of your usage quite quickly than everything else. Because it's basically going through, obviously, its own approach, as well as Claude Code will barely use that much. Okay, so this is a problem that tends to happen when we initialize ShadCN. So the font isn't getting loaded correctly. Very easy fix. So in this case, let's go ahead and do, what's it called? The font isn't loading correctly. Most likely the issue is when you installed ShadCN. Just double check the font inside of layout.tsx. So it tends to happen here in layout.tsx. I'm going to pass that in as a follow-up task. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is, actually, you know what? I'm just going to force this in. Let's just get that done. Say, show me suitable jobs for me. Right? And this will still work. In the meantime, it's just the font didn't load, right? So matching jobs for your profile, boom. And you can see I've already applied for one, so the test was done. So if I was to click apply for one of these jobs right now, boom. And you look at this. Look, it's generating in the back. Okay, so it's generating in the back. Let's see what it does. And I wonder if it's because it's Sonnet 5 or what. What's the, like, let's see. Come on, Jay. Let's see. Where is that running? So cursor pm dev. Let's see. So firstly, I don't know where the app is running. So I need to make sure. Am I running it here? Come on, field. Cursor AI agent. So obviously it's trying to run the app when it's testing it itself. So we need to make sure it's properly running. So let's refresh it. Also, this is annoying. 1 second. So I'm going to kill the terminal, stop the terminal. Come on, Jay. Let's kill that one. And now let's run it over here. pm dev. Right. And again, actually, inside of package.json, remember I was talking about that script. So let's say we need to add in that concurrent script as well. So I'm going to add it in quickly here. Come on in. Say add a dev all concurrent script so we can run the Next server as well as Convex dev at the same time. And that doesn't really have to be this. You can do Composer 2.5. The dev server I had running in the background was stopped. Nothing is listening, but if you're starting and you're all set, otherwise let me know and I'll spin it back up. Okay, so in this case, I'll repackage this and add a concurrent dev script. Just quickly do that. Okay, so we can let that do its thing. In a moment. I'm being lazy as well. You could just do PNBX convex dev on the side, but this is just installing it as a dev dependency, which is now done. Concurrently, we should see, yep. And then in a moment, we should see, there you go, next dev convex and dev all concurrently, next convex, and then that's it. So blue and magenta. And now when we run it, we can go ahead and do pm dev :all. And what you'll see is a concurrently script running. So you see how the different colors, blue and magenta. So now I can see exactly when it's blue, it's from next. When it's purple, it's from convex. Okay. And also I can install these Convex AI files. That's probably a good thing to do, by the way. Yeah. So now if I hit refresh, we should see, yep, there we go. Okay. Now if I say find suitable jobs for me. Well, fanciable jobs for me. Okay. Let's see if it even understood that. Okay. It understood what I was saying. Here, your top based profile. So as we click on apply for this job, let's see. So submit application. So in this case, it's doing something, but it's this space. Oh no, it did it. Yeah, look. Dear hiring team, I'm writing to apply for the senior full stack developer role at Brightpath. With over 10 years of experience building production web application, deep specialization in Next.js, TypeScript, and Node.js, I'd bring hands-on engineering strength and proven mentorship to your team from day one. And by the way, I want to highlight something here. Yeah, this is actually incredible because if you see inside of profiles, we go to the user's profile. So firstly, this is not being made up. This is actually off of what he done. So if you see over here, we've got 10 years of experience. So I actually pulled the 10 years of experience. Over the past several years as founder and lead engineer at Papa Technologies, I've designed and shipped dozens of production grade SaaS products end to end, from data modeling and authentication, Okay. So if we go over to the experience, you can see, look, we've got Papa Technologies, where we can say basically designed and shipped dozens of production grade apps and SaaS products end to end. Okay. Mentorship is equally central to how I work, right? So in this case, it's basically included a bunch. I'm particularly drawn to Brightpath because the role combines exactly what energizes me most, driving architecture for growth. This is awesome. So now we basically have a cover letter for us. We click submit, boom, we've now applied for that one. Let's say, for example, this one, loop work, right? So let's pick something where I'm not so suited for it. So like, I mean, 62%, right? So this one, let's just say it was SQL and a few other things. Apply for this one, drafting a tailored cover letter from your profile. Okay. So this is really, really clean. And imagine now, this is actually worth something. Okay. Dear hiring team, I'm excited to apply for the software engineering growth role at Fanbase, right? So this one was at Fanbase. As a senior full stack with 10 years plus building experience. Yeah, at Papa Technologies, developer education I founded. I shipped dozens. You see how it's different every time. And this is one thing I really recommend. Like a simple personalized cover letter will go a long way. So now we've made an AI addition to our agent, which is basically valuable. Okay, so if I can submit that application. So in this case, I can now come into this platform. I can go ahead and talk to an agent. I can see jobs that suitably match my profile and I can apply for them. And it will literally create custom resume cover letters for me, right? As well as finding similarity vector matching against my profile. Really sick, okay? So now, obviously, we don't want that to be for free, okay? So how do we gate it? That's where we merge the work in now, okay? So now we go ahead and we merge the two pieces of work in. So what we want to do is come back to our chat. We can say, this is perfect. I want to commit all of the changes. So at this point now, we're just going to do a simple commit, 23 changes. And then we want to commit this first because then our main is up to date. And then we basically will pull in that pull request. Okay. So, and you can do this in a couple of ways now. So I can either go over to the previous agent who created that pull request. Remember, they have context of what has basically been built. However, this agent understands that we added in this new feature, right? So you see there's two sides of the equation now. Right? We want to make sure that none is lost, okay? Can we fix the typical slop UI? Yeah, you can fix that UI yourself, right? There's a million ways you can fix the UI. That we're not going to focus on. I'm focusing on the actual agent value here, okay? So this has been committed, which is perfect. So if we go over to this, we see our graph should be clear. So this is great. Add job search match. We've got 6,000 additions. That's perfect. Okay. And then we're going to sync to push that to GitHub. Now, if we go to our Git work tree, right? This is going to be behind because it's not pulled up to speed. So over here, we need to synchronize changes. And you can see now it's synchronized. And look, see how it's behind main? Okay. So what we now do is if we go over to, just to showcase it to you on GitHub, if we go over to conversations, you see merge complex, right? The fun part, right? There's complex agent instructions, app components, tool result cards. There's conflicting files from these two different parallel agents or doing work. So what we want to do now is basically get that to, you know, as nice as possible, merge together, right? So we can do it from either of these agents. We can do it from a fresh agent, whatever the case. But I like to do it in a few different ways. So in this case, I'm going to say, resolve the following merge conflicts for this PR and then pull it in and basically squash and merge down, right? I'm going to basically paste in the PR itself. Again, you don't need to be perfect with your wording, right? So basically I'm going to throw that in, and then I'm going to say, while you do this, I also want to add in a gate for the apply for this job. So if you are not a pro member, I want it to basically have an empty input box. And then it would say, have AI auto-generate summaries, and that's only available for pro members. So we basically want to go ahead and have it as pro members only get the auto-generation for the cover letters. If they don't have a pro membership and they click it, then it's basically going to take them to the upgrade screen to get auto cover letter submission. Okay. So in this case, now we're going to go ahead and do this. Now, TIV says we're pushing to GitHub. I always find it so inefficient when you just skip all that and run it in the nuclear workflow. It saves so many tokens doing it this way. Yeah, 100%. Like, again, you can do way smoother over here. However, when it comes to doing like merge complex, I'll be honest, it's really not like the end of the world. Like the reason why I say I'm more pro of just saying like squash this one down, merge, squash this one down, merge, is because honestly, sometimes there's logical decisions that need to be made when you merge a PR into like a main, especially when the PR is far behind or you just merged in a ton of things. So having an agent monitoring the merge, and especially most of the time what I'll do is in my agent's MD file or Claude MD file, I'll have both always in sync. I'll effectively have it say, make sure when you're doing any form of merge, you take the logic of what was added, so the feature, the bug, whatever was done in that PR as the main context when you decide how to merge the two things together. Otherwise, it can get into situations where it says, yeah, I merged them two together, but it didn't, it basically completely broke the business logic of what feature was added, okay? Someone says, I am using a 100 times cheaper LLM like DeepSeek in another IDE, open source. I'm just pressing low prompts like commit and git push, token saving. Yeah, 100% guys, 100%. You can do that as well, right? Again, I would say when you get into really complex territory, and let's say you've got huge PRs that are merging down, use a smart model. Like that is important, because if you don't want a dumb model taking two complex branches and basically trying to get them merged, right? In my opinion, you're causing, it's the ultimate recipe for AI slop if you just throw like a haiku model, for example, into that kind of equation. So I would still be using like an opus for me is enough to do that. But some people might say it's overkill, but you can use whatever is suitable. I use opus personally, or GPT-5.5 is amazing for this. As it's doing this merge in, somebody says, my thing is that I rarely put stuff into GitHub until I'm wanting to back it up. No. That's a bad habit. Do not do that, because I don't even bother committing because it's a waste of time. No, it's not. Guys, I'm sorry to say it, but that is terrible advice. Like 100% commit. What you basically just said is like, let's say we're rock climbing, we're climbing up a mountain, and then you're not strapping on, you're not anchoring in, and then you're like, yeah, but I didn't fall down and die. Well, okay, when you fall down and die, you would have wished you would have stubbed in a checkpoint somewhere. Okay, so like it's something that you don't think is a problem until it's a big problem. So if you're building production apps, I would fire anyone on my team if they didn't commit. So it's 100% a thing. He said, I've done it forever, mate, and before AI. Trust me, it's not a good practice, dude. Like I would never have a dev on my team do that, period. There's a reason why I'm saying that. I'm not saying it because it's to shout out things, but it's 100%. I think my servers back up hourly, so not concerned. Yeah, but again, if you're a dev solo, it's you see what your workflow is. You're working solo. Like if you're in a team or you want to build a product that's scalable, it's not about what's on your server. It's about pushing to GitHub is a 2-second thing. Committing is more of a workflow thing. Also from a perspective of if you have parallel agents, having Git flow running with parallel agents is an ultimate flow once you have it dialed in. That way I have Codex running, I have Claude running, I have Cursor running. All of these agents could be doing a million things, and from my phone I could be managing everything because it's just Git flowing in and every single thing is consistent. Do not do a custom approach. Like I'm telling you now, if you approached any enterprise company or you went for funding and they did due diligence, you would never, ever, ever, ever get past round 1. They would eat you alive for that if you didn't use GitHub as a base, right? Just my ultimate advice with that one, okay? It's just, I love when we have these discussions. It's not to call someone out. It's basically because I think there could be other people that make this mistake and don't realize it's a mistake because it may not seem like it's a big deal, but it's a huge deal. So please do not do that, guys, okay? So it's merged it in, and we can see here, look, commit, confirm merge and pull main. Now it's checking in. This is subtle. So the chat itself is already behind a paywall, so none can't even access the chat, but the requirement is that no, okay. So in this case, let's have a look. So imagine I'm going to log out for a sec. So let's log out. What's happening here? Is it? Yeah, okay. So let's log out. Okay. So I'm signed out. Imagine, for example, land your next role with an AI career copilot. Okay. So in this case, you can feel free to change this up as much as you want. My biggest thing is, by the way, full transparency, Tiv, Biv in the chat. Main thing is your coding, dude. Like that's it. So anyone who's doing this stuff, I respect you. Just please, like, just really get it down. Maybe that's why I run 15 hours at a time without crazy token use. Yeah, I mean, look, again, it's you can skip Git, but Git itself doesn't use much tokens. Yeah, guys, don't do that. Just don't do that. Is my biggest opinion. I'm telling you now, I would fire someone if they did that. That's just my advice. Okay, so get started free. Let's say if I logged in, and then let's do continue with Google. Yeah, I definitely do with Tatiana. I say if she's coding something up and she does that same thing, I will go crazy. I'm like, you're literally climbing up a mountain with no support right now. So choose an account. So let me log into my account here. And then we can see I'm logged in. Pro unlocks the AI agent chat. So at this point, I am a free member. Okay. So we can see here, by the way, I didn't explain. If we go to Clerk, we go to billing, what actually it did behind the scenes for me is configured. So in this case, you see billing settings, it enabled user billing, manage plans. It created a pro plan for me using Clerk CLI. Went ahead and did all of this. You see, it actually added the monthly base fee, the annual fee as well. And then it went ahead and added in the features as well. Athava, oh shit. That was stream. What's up, dude? Because it's been a while since I've been in Sonny streams. I think last was 2021. Oh, good to see you, dude. I remember you. It's awesome to have you. So in this case, you can see like it actually added all of this by itself through the CLI. And then it even ran the end-to-end test, which shows here. So like pro tester plus clerk test, added that account, did everything. And if we see the users, we can actually see that pro tester account as well, right? So in this case, I think even Jay remembers you did. So if we go to the chat now, you can see like we gate the chat, right? So choose a plan. Chatting with the Career AI agent requires the pro plan. So of course, at this point, I haven't built the UI to showcase my profile. I haven't done those things, right? The main purpose I'm showing here is where I've shown you how to gate the feature in the first place. When we gate, we can go ahead and do the upgrade, pay with test card, and now we unlock the chat. So if I click continue now, it unlocks the chat. So in this case, if I go here, I can see I'm on the pro plan. If I go over here, I can see open the chat. Boom, I'm in the chat now, okay? Now if I was to go ahead and say, for example, show me my best suitable options at this point. Now we can see it'll be thinking, matching jobs to your profile. Boom, shows me my jobs. And then it shows the ones where I have applied and I haven't applied. Now, again, I can actually filter out if I wanted to very easily. I could say when you do that tool call, filter out the applied ones as well. Right. So really, really simple stuff. And then over here, remember, we've got the apply for this job. In this case, you can't actually reach the chat unless you're a pro member. So in this case, it's fine. It's already basically doing it, but you can see here, submit application. So if you did want to give them access to the chat, but not have it be the case where they could basically get here, then you would obviously add the gate at this level instead. But for us, and this is something, my biggest advice for you guys, one of my one-to-one mentorship students has an awesome product. The problem is his 7-day free trial basically allows people to use the AI features, and they're a startup which is trying to be lean. Now, for every user that converts, they're pulling in $7, but for the trial users, they're racking in, basically every trial user is burning through like $3 or whatnot. So yes, he has users that are paying $7. However, all of his trial users are burning through his profit. So basically you have to understand what to give people access to, where to save costs, where to token optimize. I would really highly recommend, if you want to know about optimizing token caching and all that kind of stuff, look at my Redis video. Watch the Redis video. It will blow you away with about how to save on LLM calls in ways that you may have never even known was possible. So you can go check that one out as well. Just simply type in Sonny Sanga and go ahead and do Sonny Sanga Redis, and you'll see it, right? Let's have a look. So yeah, and then there's the abuse. Yeah, people who create new accounts to burn tokens. Yeah, all these kind of things can happen. So it's really, really a big thing. Sonny, do you still conduct live session for paid students? So right now, the coaching inside of Zero to Full Stack Hero is on hold. But yes, we will be doing that again inside of Zero to AI Hero. The link to join in is in the description. Hey, look at that. Mohammed says, hey, Sonny, so happy to see you, man. Your videos got me through university even before LLMs. I appreciate your work. Oh, well, that's amazing, dude. Thank you so much. Jay, screenshot that. Really, really nice. Thank you for sharing that, dude. I'm glad I could help you out. And I hope I can help out the AI chapter for you now as well. Really, really cool. Passion Brain says, we benefit from Convex cache built-in too. It saves a lot of tokens. Yes, 100%. Right? But you see, this entire chat interface was not using Convex agent. It was using Vercel Eve. Okay? So huge, huge stuff here. Now, of course, this is where I'm going to kind of come to a conclusion on the build. The main things that we did today is, remember, my goal here was to showcase how you can implement true agentic AI stuff. In this case, like we built a full agent using Vercel Eve. So I'm going to jump into Eve and show you. So let me actually show it side by side with the code base, because I think that'll be the nicest way to do this. And then I'll give a demo of what you can do. Because remember, my goal in this new approach that we're trying to do is, rather than rebuilding the entire app, I've given you the entire source code for the beginning demo yourself. The most important part of that demo was the agent stuff, right? So as in basically how to create the agent who actually brings the value to the app, right? So I'll answer the chat in a second. But the main thing is the Vercel Eve. Okay, this was game changer for me personally. I thought it was amazing. So this is effectively where it was working. So you can see everything is defined in these files, right? So if we look at our agent that we created today, and we look at the top level, go to agent, you see instructions.md was basically defining what the agent did, right? Review the candidate's profile, suggest improvements, finding job listings that fit the individual. So find matches, search jobs. So we've done 2 examples of tool calls. Again, you can really go into I love that. Athava goes, you haven't tried Eve yet. You're always on the bleeding edge still. I love to see it. 100%, dude. I appreciate you. We're always like excited about staying at the edge of everything. Right? The agent.ts, you see how easy this is to set up. Right? So I really recommend, if you haven't used Eve, dive into it. Really awesome stuff. We've got the 4 things over here, the tool calls. Again, really, really easy to do. Get weather, we no longer need, so we can actually get rid of that. And getting rid of it's easy, guys. Boom. Just delete it. Safely done. No registering it to an agent. Literally based on the files, we can just delete it. That's it. Super easy. It works, right? And then we've got the find matches, and then we've got our Convex, which basically the main thing is the channels. So Eve.ts, this is effectively how we can talk to Eve. Now, remember, we built an agent here, but I want you to understand one thing. We can talk to this agent through the website we just built. We can also talk to the agent through the terminal, so the UI, the TUI, or we can even go ahead and talk to it through Slack, through Discord, all of these other things, just by simply adding in additional channels, okay? So remember this, like down here, if we go down to the channels over here, you can see you can add simple channels over here, select Slack channel, and basically you can connect your Slack credentials over here. So you see over here, Vercel Connect. This is basically how we can go ahead and connect it to Slack. So if we were to do it, for example, for Slack, so crazy easy. We can go down to channels, go down to Slack, boom. you can go ahead and do a Slack connection over here, like add channel, go ahead and set this up, and then the credentials, connect Slack channels, Slack credentials, and then basically follow this. And to be honest with you, all you have to do is go ahead and give this to your agent and it will handle the entire thing for you. And now you can literally go to your Slack channel once it's been authenticated and talk to this exact agent with all the tool calls and everything else in the mix and get this down, right? Now, if you do want to know about also the questions and all that stuff, again, all you would have to do is just literally ask your agent to implement it. But you guys saw for yourselves, like I've actually given you the code which will explain all of that part as well. So where it can ask you questions, you can answer back, all the way that we typically have got used to using AI. Vibes Armor goes, this was awesome, Eve agent. I would definitely give this a try. You can sell access to GitHub project for some dough. Yeah, we actually have a GitHub repo as well. If you can in future create a voice agent also in this AI series, it'll help my project. Oh, 100%. Yeah, we've got a really cool partner as well that we can actually partner up with. But again, I don't want to skip over the point as well. Remember, you don't want to give this for free. So like a chat like this, for example, with the applications for jobs and all that stuff, that's where Clerk came in clutch, right? So Clerk, I want to shout them out again because they're just undisputed amazing in their field. I know people scream about lots of different auth providers, but in my opinion, they're AI first, they're ahead of the game. Give the CLI to your agent, authorize the CLI on your account, and just let it handle stuff and focus on the app you're building. This literally handles everything for you. When you sign up, I would appreciate if you use the link in the description. Of course, it helps us out a ton. But once you have this down, guys, I'm not joking, it sets everything up for you now. So it does the whole lot for you. And then if you go ahead and even go to the billing, like the entire billing flow is done for you as well. If you want to know how we do B2B org billing, you saw how it set the entire flow up for me, by the way. So inside of here, we did user billing. If you go to orgs and it basically, you see, oh, I need to go back over here. What have I done? I've logged out. Let's go back over here. Go to configure, go to orgs, go to, oops. Okay, weird. I think it's because I have two profiles running at once. But basically, I don't even have to do that myself. I can literally give that as well and tell AI, okay, I want to create multi-tenancy now. So I want to have basically organizations that can invite members in. Clerk CLI can literally enable organizations, set up payment plans for all the organizations, and then your agent can go ahead and build out the entire flow to set everything up. It's crazy powerful. Stop worrying about webhooks and blah, 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 and all this other stuff that you'd have to do just to get the bare minimum payment flow working. Offload it to Clerk, let that handle it, and then focus on building an actually valuable app, which is why today we've dived into how Clerk and Eve can work amazingly well together. And that's why I was so excited for this build, because truly it brings it all together in such a crazy way. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just set this the only way I know how to, and end it. Give me 1 sec. But yeah, feel free to ask any questions as we wrap up. And then I'll go ahead and answer them before we close up. But yeah, remember the code for this entire build, so the actual initial build that I demoed in the beginning of the video, you can go free, feel free to check it all out. All of that is available over on the GitHub. The link to that is in the description. When you sign up, as I mentioned before, I'd appreciate if you use our link. You can also click this button over here to go to sign up to Clerk through our link, and it helps us do more of these videos for absolutely free, guys. Like, I'm gonna start following this format on the channel where we literally are gonna be building these projects out, but then dialing in on the focal point of why. It's really kind of a cool concept right now, because we're basically going to be dialing in on how you can build the AI portion by using the AI tools that are constantly getting upgraded day to day. And those are the things which are literally going to set you apart from every other developer. I can promise you now, if you've been a single person watching this video, you're already ahead of 90% of the devs, because nobody else will be using Vercel Eve. It's the latest, best way to build it. So well done to you if you're already here and you're doing this. It's amazing stuff. And I would recommend that you take it a step further. You try and mess around with sandboxes, connected to a channel, even screw around with sub-agents, right? So really dive into the sub-agents element of it and get it all working, get the whole flow working, see how far you can take this. And I would love to see what you guys build with it. So drop a comment afterwards and tell me what you guys thought about the entire thing, right? And of course, smash the like button if you enjoyed it. As Dava goes, I think that's the future of coding channels. Just building live, that's the most amount of learning anyone can get, especially in the AI age. 100%, dude. That's what we're going to be trying now. Instead of going end-to-end building, it's more about diving in on how you can actually get value from these kind of new features that we are able to build, right? And of course, we now unlock the ability to build them at faster rates than we ever could before. So I'm going to really be dialing in on that. And again, just before we wrap up, if you're interested in learning all of this before it comes onto YouTube, go ahead and head over to Zero to AI Hero. Link is down below in the description. Me and Jay are going to literally be setting up the opening gates and how we're going to prepare all of this very, very shortly. So if you're one of the first inside to go ahead and be a part of this community, you will also be one of the first to get Zero to Full Stack Hero, Diamond, everything access for absolutely free when you sign up to that. Okay, so go ahead and do it. Literally, you're going to get a once in a lifetime offer with that. So yeah, it's your boy Sonny. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.